Harrison Price for Friday, March 6, 2026, presentation of Bet365. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio here at the historic Wall Center. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, two-time provincial basketball champion Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. National Hockey League trade deadline day, and the deadline has just come. Horn has sounded. And so we await the last trickle of trades to come in on what was a very slow morning. I mean, we have seen some slow deadlines in the past, but goodness gracious, unless there is a windfall of deals that are coming in here right at the wire, today was a whole lot of nothing.
A whole lot of nothing. We are told the Canucks do have an additional deal in play here. But
one or two?
So conflicting information. Some saying one, some saying two. But the qualification from Patrick Johnston's reporting on this was minor moves. So my guess on this is like Lucas Reichel, something like that.
Yeah. Does Teddy Bluger not count as a minor move? I mean, if he's returning like a middle round pick.
I don't know that I would call that a minor move. Well, it's a roster player.
Minor is in the eye of the beholder. So while we await more reporting and announcements on these deals, let's just recap. The big news, both for the Canucks and I think across the National Hockey League, comes late last night. Of course, the Canucks deal Conor Garland to the Columbus Blue Jackets for a second and a third round pick. The third round pick this year, the second in 2028. Blake and I did an emergency edition of Harrison Price early this morning where we broke down the Garland trade in detail. We'll do more of that on today's regular program. But we do want to lead with what they have done most recently, and we'll see about that here any moment. So you had that trade. You had the absolute stunner, John Carlson, the Washington Capitals' all-time defenseman, moving to the Anaheim Ducks for conditional first and third round picks. I mean, a franchise icon. He got woke up at 1:30 in the morning Eastern time to be told, by the way, we're shipping you west. He's a UFA to be, a cup champion as well. And then you had the Winnipeg Buffalo deals from last night where former Canuck Luke Schenn and fellow jumbo defenseman Logan Stanley go from Winnipeg to Buffalo for one-time first-round pick Isaac Rosen, who's had a very good career in the AHL, could be ready to blossom, second, fourth-round picks, and a depth defenseman. So those were the big deals last night. And then you get to this morning, Blake, and look, there was a sizable trade earlier in the morning between Philadelphia and Minnesota. Philadelphia acquiring a former top 10 or top 5 David Jiricek, goes from Minnesota, of course, drafted by Columbus, sent to Minnesota for a handful of picks, wasn't able to firmly establish himself there. He moves to Philadelphia for Bobby Brink. So that's an interesting trade because those are two reasonably young players, both with pedigree, one that has been unable to launch in the NHL. The one that is just absolutely stunning to me is that somehow 40-year-old Corey Perry fetches a second-round pick for Ken Holland and the LA Kings, who do choose to be sellers when it's all said and done. Tampa Bay paying a second in 2028 to bring Corey Perry back. Of course, he's been there before, and Tampa's paid some peculiar prices in the past on players, if you'll recall, and this looks like another one. And then more recently, the Braden Schenn deal. Braden goes from the St. Louis Blues to the New York Islanders for, well, the trade, the reporting is not actually complete there, but believed to be a prospect first-round pick and a third-round pick. So that's an impressive haul that St. Louis gets for a let's face it, backside of his career, Braden Schenn at this point.
Two bigger deals have just happened as well. Justin Falk leaving the Blues. He's on his way to the Detroit Red Wings. We've been wondering why the Red Wings haven't bolstered
it all. Oh, my goodness. Detroit and Carolina in the wide open East. Detroit in the playoffs, and they haven't done a whole lot of that of late. And Carolina, who continues to hit their head on the Eastern Conference Final as a ceiling, and we were sitting there going, how are you not doing something if you're Detroit, Carolina? In fact, throw the Montreal Canadiens in that mix as well.
And the Western version of the Wings is sort of the Seattle Kraken, and they acquire Bobby McMahon from the Leafs in exchange for a second and a fourth. And he can add some scoring, but Bobby McMahon is sort of the equivalent of what the Kraken already have. It's just more of that. They are still a team without a face, without a superstar, but they have a lot of depth. We'll see if they can make some more noise now that Bobby McMahon has joined to help that offensive push. Don't have any more further details on these minor Canucks deals.
Yeah, we will look for that. We will look for that, and we will then get into our poll question and our top story. Our top story today. Let's just get everybody caught up on what the Vancouver Canucks have done here.
Just to add, Falk is a first and a third, so they get a first for McMahon for Shen and a first for Falk. My goodness, St. Louis.
The Canucks have called up center Ty Mueller from the Abbotsford Canucks. Ty played a couple of games at the end of last season in the National Hockey League. 28 points in 49 games this year with Abbey. He was 39 in 64 games last year, and then a half-point per game player as they marched to the Calder Cup Championship. So they recalled Ty Mueller. They have also claimed, speaking of jumbo, outsized centerman Curtis Douglas of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Curtis Douglas is 6'9", 242 pounds, and I just want to see what that looks like on skates. I may actually go to a game on this 8-game homestand if you're telling me I can watch 6'9", 240 in skates. I mean, that is NBA power forward size, Blake.
I'm going to go major league here. Too high. It's too high. He's never played 10 minutes in a hockey game, in an NHL game. And I've got some feedback from people.
And he's a fighter too. Like, we don't see fighters very much anymore.
I think he's got 9 fights or 8 fights in the NHL in 29 games. So every other night or every third night he's fighting. Some fans of the Abbotsford Canucks have gotten into my mentions and said that this is not a strong hockey player.
No.
So I would reduce expectations there. 2 points, 2 assists as a forward in 29 career NHL games. So is this a policeman for Gavin McKenna going forward? I don't know. But it's a curious move for me. I don't know that there's a need for Curtis Douglas.
So if the reporting is right here, and we say this every year at trade deadline, just because 12 noon has come for us does not mean there aren't trades that are lined up and ready to be announced here that the insiders haven't got their mitts on yet.
So PJ said it was a minor deal. Farhan confirms it is one of the pending 3 UFAs.
Yeah. That is Teddy Bluger, that is Evander Kane, that is David Kampf, although I would have to think this is Teddy Bluger. He seemed to have the most robust market, although robust is a very generous term here. There was word last night out of Pittsburgh that the Penguins were maybe looking at bringing Teddy Bluger back. Of course, he had played there previously, would know Sid and Malkin and Letang and some of the holdovers from the Penguins' glory days, and of course eras of yesteryear. What I think we can say with certainty now, unless there is a real shocker out there, is that Vancouver Canucks veterans with term are not moving at this deadline. There was activity on Elias Paterson, but Elias Paterson, for a second straight deadline when we were wondering, remains a Vancouver Canuck. Brock Besser, and there was word later this week that Besser was more willing to waive his trade protection than he had been previously. New York Islanders were linked to Brock Besser, but it does sound like the longest-serving member of the Vancouver Canucks team remains a Vancouver Canuck here at the deadline. And then there's Jake DeBrusk, who had said earlier in the week that he didn't sign up for a rebuild and would be looking to move elsewhere. Ryan Rishaug reporting there out of his hometown in Edmonton for TSN. People wondered whether the homecoming would be happening there, but it sounds like Jake DeBrusk is a Vancouver Canuck to stay, and we can add Drew O'Connor, whose name was out there a little bit as well.
Let me ask you this. Ryan Strome was just traded by the Anaheim Ducks to the Calgary Flames.
Having a terrible year, if I'm not mistaken.
Having a terrible year. He's got 1 year left.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me they got like a first or a second to take on Ryan Strome's money.
It was a 7th round pick.
Oh, okay.
No, but there was some talk that the Canucks should go and get Ryan Strome, help alleviate this problem for the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah.
Because you need a center next year, too. You need to bolster your center depth. And
he's a right shot center.
He's a right shot center. I mean, he's a half point per game guy at minimum. He's a bit below that this year. But, maybe if it only cost you a 7th round pick.
Yeah, well, especially since next year as a UFA, and especially if he rehabilitates, you're going to get more than a 7th. Right?
And we talked about this both on the emergency show and yesterday, Matt.
Yeah.
Could they buy with an opportunity to flip a player? Ryan Strome is a great example of this, and kudos to Craig Conroy for recognizing that.
Blake, they play checkers. Many around this league now play chess.
Folks, this is not
just an unsophisticated management group that doesn't do creative, doesn't think outside the box, and is only capable of paying assets to get bad money off their books and taking later return after they extend players to bad extent.
The Canucks are
as we saw with Garland.
This hasn't been a disastrous deadline week for them. They've made some moves. They've traded away guys with term. All that's been good. That being said, I think you can make the argument they have been passed in the rebuild power rankings by both the Blues and the Flames this week.
Oh, for sure. Oh, no question. Question.
The Canucks have held their own. They have shown a willingness to actually rebuild. I will give them that. I'm not taking it away. But I think there's been more aggressive moves by the Blues and by the Flames, and maybe even the Jets, to tear things down.
Yeah. I think you can make the argument Calgary and St. Louis were selling more attractive pieces than Vancouver.
But again, that's a condemnation of your earlier work by saying that.
Although, Schenn versus Garland, I mean, and I understand that Schen's contract may be more attractive to a lot of teams than Garland's.
But he's a 36-year-old player.
Yes. Falk, who has his warts but has pedigree and plays the right side on defense. In Calgary's case, Mackenzie Weegar, who, needless to say, I think is a more attractive asset than Conor Garland or others as a right side defenseman. But no, I think that's completely fair. The
good news is the Canucks remain above the New York Rangers on that same power rankings of rebuilds.
That's another team that is
Vincent Trocheck does not move.
Seemingly quiet today. They moved Sam Carrick. Yeah, Vincent Trocheck doesn't move. Nassim Kadri doesn't move out of Calgary.
Yeah, a little surprise there.
A little late in happening there. And then, of course, St. Louis was peddling just about everyone, including top line players like Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, and that doesn't seem to have come to fruition either. And unless, again, there's something late, doesn't sound like they found a taker for Colton Parayko after he nixed that trade to Buffalo. All in all, though, this was just an awful deadline.
It really was. It really was.
Part of that, I think, is the hype, and we are absolutely on the media side responsible for some of the hype. But when you took a look at what was possible here today, the big St. Louis sell-off that didn't happen. You mentioned Trocheck with the Rangers. Sergei Bobrovsky, Jordan Binnington, goaltenders who were cup-winning goaltenders who were available with needy goaltender teams out there. Not so much. Young, right shot, pedigreed defenseman Simon Nemec in Jersey. Not so much.
I mean, the closest thing I can see to this is the pandemic year, the North Division trade deadline, which was a 30-trade deadline.
Sorry, Blake, one more.
Yeah.
And Stamkos.
But we're talking about a trade deadline in the National Hockey League that at times has had 56 trades in a day. Like
Is that the list? Is that the high?
I've got in the last 10 years.
Holy cow!
The high is a 56 trade year in 22-23.
Okay, so we have the return here for Justin Falk now to Detroit for Justin Holl, a first-round pick and a third-round pick.
Again, 2 first-round picks.
You had that. My apologies, Blake. So how many trades today?
I don't have a running total just yet, but it's got to get it's got to get to 30, or it's an all-time low kind of thing.
I have 13 right now.
Yeah,
13.
So what are the chances there's 17 late ones?
No chance.
Yeah.
7, perhaps. 17, no hope. And look, we should note this. There are new rules in the National Hockey League this year about a playoff salary cap. You've got to be compliant with rosters you dressed in the postseason. Not to mention the LTIR rules were changed, long-term injured reserve, where you don't just get oodles of cap space by putting high-priced veterans on LTIR for the final quarter of the season to build up your armaments, your arsenal, and then only to have that player miraculously recover health-wise and be available for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the panels were talking about that today, that it was a little more of a fixed environment, that it was a little more of a gummed-up trade market because of that. But holy cow, what a letdown today from the National Hockey League. And Blake, we said a week ago Monday or a week ago Tuesday, there is a massive opportunity at the feet of hockey right now following those thrilling gold medal games from Milan, both of them going to overtime, both of them won by the United States, where you're most looking to grow the game, with the success of that heated rivalry series and how that has become mainstream culture, one of the hottest shows going. I mean, hell, one of the stars hosts Saturday Night Live. It's sort of your telltale. There is a massive opportunity for this sport to market itself and find new audiences, new fans in non-traditional demographics. And one of the things that you brought up this week, partner, and I'll give you credit, is, okay, now finish it off with a blockbuster deadline that has everybody in the hockey world talking and big enough names that maybe you get some crossover appeal. It does not look like that has happened, partner.
Errors and omissions. I was reading the number of players traded versus
as opposed
total
to the number
trades.
Of trades. But 13 trades, Blake, can't be.
13 will be the lowest. If
there'll be more. It's not going to finish at 13, but it's going to be hard pressed to get to 20. Which
and 20 is sort of the average of the last 25 years. Yeah. With a high water mark of 32 on a couple of years. 1920 and 21-22 both had 32 trades.
But, Blake, so many of these are small potatoes.
Yes.
I mean, Derek Pouliot, for heaven's sakes. I mean, I didn't even know he was still playing hockey. I mean, you've got a couple of trades here with TBDs or future considerations. You have one trade with a conditional 7th-round pick. We were talking about this. How do you feel about your lot in life when you get traded for a conditional?
Well, Duthie was saying
the lowest form of currency, and we're going to put a condition on that.
See, Duthie was saying that on Trade Center they've got the one permanent board on the right of the trade bait. One guy on the trade bait board at near the close of business time was traded in Braden Shen, but now Falk's gone, so that'll change a little bit. But the big names, one or two guys off that list, that is it.
Yeah. Let's get to our daily poll question, and I understand that nobody will yet be able to answer this unless you just going to run with the notion it's a minor trade to come from the Canucks and the Q, and that's that. But does the Canucks deadline work make you believe in their rebuild? You can vote yes, you can vote no. Do so at the Harrison Price X and YouTube channels, and we also should flag we do have another poll running today from earlier. Did the Canucks get enough for Conor Garland? That one's up to nearly 2,000 votes here. You can say yes. You can vote no, yes or no there also at Harrison Price.
So a few of the rebuilding teams
YouTube
had their versions of Teddy Bluger and Evander Kane, right?
Yeah.
Some of them got their jobs done. The Toronto Maple Leafs just traded Scott Lawton to the Kings. That was one of their half to trades.
And that's interesting because that tells me the Kings weren't selling, as I noted earlier, They just couldn't believe Tampa gave him a second-round pick for Corey Perry.
I guess that's it.
I mean, if you're adding Scott Lawton after moving Corey Perry out, I mean, that's a little bit of 1 foot in the rebuild in the sell camp, 1 foot in the buy camp. But I'm going to bet Kenny Holland went, are you kidding me? A second-round pick for a 40-year-old
And you might
winger?
think, hey, Scott Lawton's better than Corey Perry. If he is, it's not by much. Corey Perry's got 28 points this year.
Corey Perry's having a good year, but still, I'm absolutely
The Jets
mind blown that he went for a second.
The Jets got Tanner Pearson out for a late round pick.
Former Canuck Tanner Peterson had a market.
So, other teams are making it work with those sort of fringe roster guys and getting something for them.
Yeah.
We'll see what that last one Canuck trade maybe has in store for us. And still no word on which of the 3 Canuck UFAs this is that is moving out the door. Dollywall, I think, reporting that it is not Reichel, who is not a UFA. He's an RFA.
Yeah.
So we'll see who it is ultimately. Where are you on the new poll question about the validity of the rebuild now?
Well, the end of the day, they're going to be holding 2 of the 3 UFAs.
Looks like
I never really thought Kampf had a market, so I guess for me they went 50-50 on the UFAs, if it is, in fact, one of Blucher or Evander Kane.
And that was a prior poll question of ours. How many of these UFAs get dealt?
I was quite underwhelmed with the Conor Garland return. I think they mismanaged the asset and misplayed that hand. I think they did decent on the Tyler Myers return, given how poor a season Tyler was having. And I guess I do think you have to factor in Kiefer Sherwood because he was a UFA to be as well. And while he moved some time ago, that was necessary business. And again, I wasn't over the moon about 2 second-round picks for Sherwood, but I thought it was solid work. So I'm going to give him a solid grade on Sherwood, a solid grade on Myers, below average grade on the Conor Garland deal. And we'll see what comes in with one of these 2 UFAs, but I can't imagine that's going to change the price of tea much. Look, I had been saying for weeks and months here, to me, the rebuild pivoted on Garland, that you had to get rid of Garland before the no move kicks in. But of course, that's not till July 1st. They did have another opportunity at that at the draft. Does it make me believe in their rebuild? No, not yet, actually. Blake, if I had to answer, I'm going to answer no. Makes me believe they are rebuilding, given that it was mostly picks that was brought in, and in some cases long-range picks. I am comforted by the fact that they seem to now understand the exercise, but I can't say that I loved their work within the exercise.
I was just going to say what you said, that it is clear they are trying to rebuild. I guess the other question is, do you believe they are the ones to execute it, that should execute the rebuild for the Vancouver Canucks?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I would put Rutherford out to pasture at this point. He's well before his best before date. And
it's also not what he wants to do.
Frankly, Patrik Allvin doesn't know.
It's also
I'm
not his bag.
I'm not a believer in Patrik Allvin either. So, I think, and look, we know that financial considerations come into this with Canucks Sports and Entertainment. They don't love paying managers not to manage and coaches not to coach. But this management team and this coaching staff share one thing in common. They have been abject failures and have absolutely no leg to stand on in terms of the merits of bringing them back. Can you give me a single reason why you would bring Jim Rutherford, Patrik Allvin, or Adam Foote back other than saving Francesco's money?
I mean, if you just felt like that's your best avenue to 32nd place and the best chance to get Landon Dupont.
Much like the Montreal Canadiens years ago when they fired their general manager and brought in, and it was a very out-of-the-box hire in Kent Hughes because he had been a player agent, but they brought Jeff Gordon, who had been a established manager with the Rangers. But no, when they fired Bergevin and they brought those 2 guys and said, now we're really kicking the rebuild into high gear, I would like to see the Vancouver Canucks do that with a young, modern general manager who understands that it's not just about hockey trades. It's not just about paying teams to take your bad assets and bad money away, but has a creative framework for trades, will take on money to gain assets, will move around draft boards, will use analytics, will invest in sports science and support staff, particularly in the absence of a practice facility. No, it is. I'm not sure you can sell Rutherford Allvin going forward. And if you can, it's because they do some great work at the draft and in free agency in reformulating this club and giving the fans a reason to believe that they're the right guys to rebuild.
Well, if they make moves, of course, they've got to make them in April or May so as to get a new management group and new coach in place for June and the draft.
Yep.
And you have to do that with an eye towards not necessarily winning more games next year. I think you're okay being 32nd next year, but you need a healthier atmosphere.
Oh,
and you need players that are trying out there. You need players that are designed to work off of each other and cultivate some learning and some development. And that's the dangerous thing with just running everybody back and saying, hey, they're going to be bad anyway. Who cares? The toxicity around a guy like Braden Coots, the toxicity around a guy potentially like Gavin McKenna or Ivar Stenberg, you don't want that. And I'm not going to badmouth.
You cannot let Foote and his current staff handle young cornerstones of that order.
And I'm not going to badmouth Conor Garland too much here, but
I will.
But getting rid of Conor Garland was pretty integral.
For the bulk of his career as a Vancouver Canuck, his effort, intensity, joy of the game was palpable on the ice and commendable. There were a lot of nights when the Canucks were not very good and Conor Garland was their hardest working player and deserved to be singled out as standing apart from the herd. More recently, in fact, I'll just say it, in terms of those who quit after the Quinn Hughes trade, Conor Garland is at the top of my list. That guy pulled the chute. That guy wanted out. And frankly, I got more and more tired of the preciousness with Conor. In fact, preciousness is something that is in that Canucks room that needs to be rooted out in its entirety by whomever is leading this organization going forward.
Okay, does this change your opinion on the poll question? Of the three UFAs who were traded, I would say the guy is a distant third likelihood to be traded is the guy.
David Kampf.
To the Washington Capitals for a 6th round draft pick.
That doesn't change the price of tea for me.
I mean, honestly, bravo. But how do you not trade Teddy Bluger? How is there 18 teams, 20 teams that have a chance in the playoffs, and nobody wants Ted Bluger?
Especially, Blake, when you get down to, okay, no one's going to give us the third for Teddy. Okay, now the price of the fourth.
Yes.
Okay, nobody's going to give us a fourth for Teddy Bluger. Guess what? Now the price of the fifth. I mean, I almost would have said to Washington, you know what?
Don't
what's
take
his name?
him.
McClellan?
Yeah.
I'm going to do you a solid. Take Bluger instead of Kampf. Give me the same 6th-round pick. You get a better player.
I'm having trouble moving the Cutlass Supreme. You can have it for a low price.
In fact, we'll even retain. We got a retention spot left. We can retain on Teddy Bluger. Dear God Almighty.
Absolutely
I am floored by that. And that's it? Just the one?
Yeah, it does not look like Teddy Bluger has moved. I would love to.
Yeah, Frank Saravelli now reporting the Canucks ended up hanging on to Teddy Bluger. So, folks, I'm going to there is a Lucas Reichel trade here, Blake.
Oh.
Reichel to Boston for a 6th-round pick. So the two.
Those are the two least likely to move.
And Reichel was in a UFAs and RFA, but
the Canucks were done with him.
Same. What was I going to say there? So be prepared now, everybody, for Patrik Allvin and Jim Rutherford to tell you how much they love Teddy Bluger's character, how he's a culture carrier, how after moving Tyler Myers and Conor Garland, they needed some veteran leadership in that room to lead the young pups, and that Teddy Bluger is their guy, and they'll be re-signing him on a 2-year deal. Be prepared for that. I suspect that will come with some of the messaging as soon as in a few minutes here, whenever Patrik Allvin is set to come to the podium. Mike, do we have word on that? Because I have not heard anything from our friends Jeff Paterson and Patrick Johnston down at Rogers Arena.
I am seeing and hearing nothing.
Okay. I'll tell you what, why don't you reach out and get Patrick on here? Mike, let's bring Patrick on from Rogers Arena. That's going to take a minute or two, folks, as we connect with the province's beat writer on and columnist on the Vancouver Canucks, Patrick Johnston.
I'll send out a PSA right now, too, for all those that were saying that Evander Kane is most definitely worth something and going to get traded at the trade deadline for the past 4 months. Yeah. I'll check all those mentions a little bit later. All those apologies. It was always going to be work. A very imperfect player at this point in his career with a huge salary tag.
Too, and there were a lot of red flags on Evander Kane. It is a 6th-round pick from the Boston Bruins to the Vancouver Canucks for Lukas Reichel, and in this draft, and Boston only has its own indigenous 6th-round pick, so that will be the 182nd overall selection in the 2026 entry draft that is coming to the Vancouver Canucks. And that means for this draft, it will be 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and 2 sixths. No 7th. That is independent of the David Kampf trade. Did you get a year on the pick? For
Did
Kampf?
not. I haven't seen it yet.
So we will see if the Kampf pick comes this. It was the 6th?
2 sixths, yeah. It's like 1 to Kampf, 1 to Reichel. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me just quick. Yeah, Washington has its 6th-round pick. That would be 173 overall if it is, in fact.
It just shows you what fit means to an acquiring team here, Matt. Like saying what I did about Evander Kane, he's still a better hockey player than David Kampf and Lukas Reichel. The 2 better hockey players are staying put with the Vancouver Canucks, while David Kampf and Lukas Reichel move on for assets.
So in the case of Evander Kane, look, as Blake mentioned, it was a bigger salary. Now, the Canucks were going to retain 50% on that, but it was still going to be upwards of 2.5 for the acquiring team. Older player. Needless to say, Evander has made headlines in the past, whether it was flaunting COVID protocols, whether it was the gambling debts and the bankruptcy, whether it was other allegations against him. And we had been mentioning this for some time. There was a residual matter in Edmonton from his time as an Oiler that has flown under the radar here. A lot of NHL teams were aware of it some time ago. The NHL went to authorities in Edmonton and asked them to keep them in the loop. The authorities declined, so that there wasn't a lot of information percolating through NHL circles. I believe some teams only became aware of this matter with Evander recently, so you wonder if the interested parties in doing their due diligence and homework turned this up and said, juice isn't worth the squeeze. And we're not going to get specific because there's not even a confirmed investigation going on. There are just more allegations. And if that scared some would-be suitors off of Evander Kane, I would not be the least bit surprised. I mean, if it was a different player who had a clean record, nothing to worry about to that point in his career, it might be different. But alas, I think Evander might have been victim of his history here with regards to, who could forget the sweatsuit in the shower as well, all those years ago when his Winnipeg teammates didn't quite love how he was dressing in the days of dress coats.
And on Bluger, I'm flabbergasted. Again, nobody wanted Bluger, and I do wonder now, and the question has to be asked of Patrik Allvin when he comes out, how much did they truly try to trade Teddy Bluger? Because I will say dollars to donuts, and we're seeing this already from a bunch of players that were iffy to be traded by their respective teams that are now getting signed. JG Pajot just got signed to an extension by the Islanders. I saw Eberle got signed to a new deal. So you sort of made a decision. What do you bet Teddy Blueger gets signed to an extension here in the next day or two? And it leads me down.
Well, that's if Teddy wants to be here. For all we know, I mean, he had said he wanted to be here, but this is going to get quite grisly here. Okay, so it is the 6th-round pick from the Washington Capitals to the Vancouver Canucks for Kampf. So the Canucks now on the board with picks 173 and 182 from the Capitals and Bruins respectively in these two itty-bitty trades. Vancouver also has the first pick of the 6th round, 161 overall. So it's going to be 3 6-rounders here. And that brings the total draft capital to 10 picks. You're given 7, so they have surplus plus 3 draft picks in the 2026 entry draft. And they are already surplus 2, up to 9 picks in the 2027.
And, of course, more business to be done leading up to the draft.
And the 2028 draft.
More business to be done leading up to the draft. And if you're disappointed that guys with term remain on this, I think there's a good chance. If I had to bet right now, I would say one guy with term gets traded before the draft.
And this is the great Harman Dial lesson that Harm has been preaching for several weeks now, and he's 100% right. Remind yourself, okay, before all the rage and fury and before you go typing up a storm on Twitter, this is not their last opportunity with the guys with term. It was the last opportunity for Teddy Blueger and Evander Kane, and if that's enough to set you off, understand. But when it comes to DeBrusk, when it comes to Elias Paterson, when it comes to Drew O'Connor, Brock Besser, Marcus Paterson, some of these other guys, they have another opportunity at the end of the season in and around the draft before the new league year, although in some cases they have even opportunity beyond July 1st. It's just that many of these guys have trade protection.
Matt, this also is a day to roast the Lucas Reichel acquisition as well.
Well, they gave up a fourth.
They gave up a 4th-round pick. They only get a 6th round back the other way, and they gave this guy 14 games. Many of those
most of them at
center
when he's a natural winger because you ran out of centers early in the season, as everybody predicted last summer.
So they gave him no legitimate look in the position that he really should be in the NHL, which is on wing, and they peeled off a 4th-round pick that would look a lot better right now. Like if you told me they traded him again for another 4th-round pick, well, that's a big jump from the 6th to the 4th round. It's one thing to acknowledge mistakes, but I don't know that after 14, and this is not a prediction that Lucas Reichel is going to be a star in this league, not at all. But I'm just saying, don't make that trade if you plan on only giving him 14 games worth of leash. Like, not nearly enough. 3 weeks worth of games. Like, are you kidding me?
Let's bring in Patrick Johnston, columnist for the Province and Postmedia, Province Sports, covering the Vancouver Canucks. He joins us from Rogers Arena. How are you? Patrick, can you hear me down there?
You got us, buddy?
Doesn't sound like Patrick's able to hear us, Mike. So why don't you vet that with PJ, and we'll bring him back. I mean, Blake, they didn't give him the opportunity, Reichel, at the right position, but they gave him an opportunity. I mean,
you acquire a brand new player, you pay assets, and you're only giving him 14 games? No, you would call that as an opportunity for a call-up that you then send back down that you own going forward. That's a look. But you just spent assets on the guy.
Wow, but you recouped it too. So you moved down 2 draft rounds basically to get your look. I'm not.
I think it's.
You're getting apoplectic about that, Blake?
Yes.
Of all the things to get apoplectic,
add it to the list. Add it to the list. Cherry on top. Straw breaking camel's back.
Blake has a pebble in his shoe. And it's an itty-bitty pebble, but it's grinding right in the wrong spot. Which piggy is being grinded here by the Lucas Reichel?
It's a symptom of the problem.
Here's Patrick Johnston, columnist, Postmedia, and the Province, joining us from Rogers Arena.
As I reposition myself here. Here we go.
Oh, look at that. Okay. You know what? We need some levity, so that's good. That's good stuff. And hey, Vancouver Warriors banner in the background. They deserve some publicity.
That's the kids.
No, we don't want the kids. We want the Warriors.
We want the winning team.
That's an actual winning outfit at Rogers Arena, Patrick. They can go 10-3 this week. Get a share of first place in the NLL tonight, actually. Patrick, do you have any explanation in advance of hearing from Allvin on how Teddy Bluger is still a Vancouver Canuck right now?
Yeah, a bit surprising. No, I don't. Certainly had the feeling, he was on the radar. There's no doubt about it. And I know there were teams that certainly were interested. And, you see other players of a similar type going for a trade. So I don't. It is very surprising. I mean, I had a feeling David Kampf would go. There was just sort of something that I heard earlier in the week that there was sort of a how to put it, sort of a last minute kind of mentality with, I think, some of the teams that were interested in him, sort of like he's playing E. And so obviously Washington moving in the direction they're going. I'd actually kind of wondered if Philly might move for him because, they only really had 3 centers, but they've gone and solved their problem otherwise. So, but I knew he would kind of be a sort of last place option. So that didn't surprise me. But yeah, in the end, Bluger, who is playing well and, has everything you kind of think you want. So yeah, that one did surprise me. I don't think there's anything beyond the fact that they just didn't get it done. I know there's sort of some interest in maybe retaining him. Obviously, we've talked about that before, and there's an argument for it. But yeah, I don't get it. It seems like the one thing I would say in everything that's happened this week that you thought would happen would be that he would be going somewhere else, and somehow he's not. But then again,
they would have been really. They would have been really
would have saved their bacon a little bit, I think, on today.
Yes, it would have changed the reviews for sure.
Yeah.
They would have been really thin at center for the final quarter of the season here if they traded Bluger as well. That's not the reason why they retained him, but what is a look down the middle the rest of the way? Like, Ty Mueller called up. Are they going to use him, or is it just as simple as slotting Ratu in here? Because Camp was playing every night.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We were wondering that ourselves. Is this really, there's something, what did Ratu do?
No kidding.
To create this scenario for him, right? But yeah, you look at the options that are left. I mean, Ty Mueller is kind of the extra forward, but it's not like they didn't have an extra one. Max Sasson, you figured, would go in the lineup with Garland gone, and he played the other night for Kane. We were told Kane is not playing tonight. Although I was also told that was as much about a potential trade as anything, and obviously he's still here. So whether he plays tonight or not, we'll see. I mean, obviously he's got 11 games to go until he plays 1,000 in the NHL. And obviously that will now happen with the Vancouver Canucks. Might be a strange ceremony for him, but he has achieved, and he has had a solid NHL career for all the twists and turns that there has been to his NHL career. He is here now, and he will continue to be a Vancouver Canuck for the rest of the season. So, yeah, I mean, whether Ratu gets in the lineup, I guess, is now the question, and finding out what his future is. They certainly were. Remember how excited they were. It was almost like our first-round draft pick. And yet, here we are as the coaching staff has not, I guess, liked his game, and he continues to be the odd man out. We will see if he gets in the lineup tonight.
Conor Garland in the deal last night with Columbus. Yeah. What says you? Did they get enough return?
Well, you look at what other teams have done. I think most people's reaction was like, that's it. But I do point out that this is a guy signed on a 6-year deal, which in the past, Jim Rutherford's made the argument that if you have a guy signed, it's easier to trade them because it's less of a variable for another team. It's just hard to imagine. I mean, and like, as J. Pat will point out, and has pointed out more than once, Conor Garland has not scored on a goalie since November. I don't think he's lost the ability to score. I don't think the team has been very good. He has been part of that problem, I suppose. And I do think he will help Columbus. I think he'll be a good player for them. Did they get enough? Yeah, I mean, I think they should have gotten a late first, but in the end, what's the difference between late first and an early second? We'll see how Columbus goes, I guess, here. It's going to be, 40? That pick will be sort of late 40s, early 50s, I guess, at this point.
Well, but a couple of years down the road, Patrick, the second-round pick, right?
So who knows what they're going to be.
And here's the thing, and I've seen other people cite the contract extension for Garland and other teams being wary of it. But a couple of things are important by way of context on that. Number one, the extension was viewed as an asset in the eyes of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is not a team that often gets big-name free agents that want to sign there. Johnny Gaudreau, the late Johnny Gaudreau notwithstanding. So for Columbus to get cost certainty on a proven NHL commodity that they can feel good about over the next 3 to 4 years, particularly a more veteran effort type of guy for all the young forwards they have, was an asset or at the very worst neutral in Columbus's eyes. Secondly, there was a market of up to 8 teams for Conor Garland, according to Rick Dhaliwal, including 4 that were left there at the end. So they were not able to play one off the other and maximize the return on Conor Garland.
Yeah, I that was the thing. I mean, you know, you and I were talking about this last night. When I saw there were 4 teams involved, I'm like, well, surely they'll get a first out of this, right? So the fact they didn't get a first, I don't know what that means, but it tells you that in the end, they couldn't play the market as well as others probably would have thought they would. And I agree with you. I mean, when this sort of all started happening and players started moving on, I was convinced the Canucks really wanted to get another first-round pick, and that's what they were chasing after. And the fact that they are now standing here without a third first-rounder tells me that they didn't execute their plan. I mean, they are rebuilding. They are moving in a new direction. They do have a bunch of picks. You know, I was talking to someone else in the league this morning, and they basically asked me the question, and I appreciate it. I said, you know, if you think about a second-round pick in terms of Jet Wu, right? Jet Wu is the second one. Is having drafted. Would you rather draft a Jet Wu this year or hold on to a future pick in a few years, and maybe if you get good, you can trade it for a useful player? And there is an argument for that. And so that's how maybe you can look at the Garland second. That said, the fact that they didn't get another first-round pick in the end is, I will be curious to hear if they view that as a failure in their plan. I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't say that publicly, but I think they really wanted to juice their intentions this year. You know, the more first-rounders you get in the mix, the quicker this can all take. You know, in the end, it's going to be tough hockey for a couple of years here, and that's going to be a hard thing to sell, and the ownership hates having to actually do the work to sell tickets. They just want to have winning and make the work do it itself, I guess. And the more first rounders you have, the better chance that you are turning around quickly. So that in the end, to me, is the takeaway here, is that they've done okay and they're looking like a rebuild, and they've got a bunch of decent picks coming here. But a quick turnaround, this is not going to be. Not yet, anyway.
People will show up to watch the brand new shiny objects. So to me, it means that Braden Coots is a full-time. Braden Coots is a full-time player next year, and whoever they draft this year is a full-time player next year.
Let's have Braden Coots prove he's a National Hockey League player. You don't want to rush him and ruin him, especially with the new rule that you're allowed a 19-year-old in the American Hockey League.
I'm not necessarily advocating, but I'm just saying that will be the temptation for them to put butts in seats. Is to have people watch the shiny objects. Both of us are of the mind, Patrick, that, hey, they are at least legitimately interested in a rebuild. These moves tell us that. The question is, based on what we've seen so far and what we can forecast in the near future here, are they the ones that should be making the rest of these moves? Are they going to do a good enough rebuild as we watch the Blues and Flames probably do a better job of it so far?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? Like, this is the first true strip it down to the studs rebuild we've seen in Vancouver in 27 years. It was Brian Burke that did the last one, and he was aggressive, and he went after, obviously, the Sedins right off the bat. But he made a lot of trades, and he added guys. And obviously the league is different now. The cap changes that whole dynamic. The fact that it's harder to sign free agents, harder than ever to sign free agents. It is a really good question. In terms of setting themselves up, yes, as I said, they've got a bunch of draft picks coming here, and that matters, right? The fact that they're near the top end of the draft, like, that matters. That will help them with the basics. But in terms of executing all this, right, like, a lot of these are, in the end, these are self-created errors, if you think about it. Right? Like, the fact that Hughes left. I mean, maybe Quinn Hughes was always going to leave, but certainly the way he left more quickly than expected. I mean, that's down to JT Miller blowing up in their face. Elias Paterson struggling the way he is. That was a choice. You know, there were people internally who said, no, this is a guy we need to move on from. They didn't do that. They're stuck with a goalie that's always hurt, right? And his new contract hasn't even started. So there are a lot of warning signs for sure when you look and say, is this a group that's really going to be the right group to get it done? On the other hand, in setting up that 23-24 season, the way the team played, the way that team was playing well, they also made that happen. So in the long run, the real question now is, one, what do you actually do? How do you turn this team around? Well, certainly you get a bunch of young guys, but you also have to make the right decisions along the way and not get desperate and not say, we're going to try to do this, which was the Jim Benning problem, right? They have to avoid that, but they also, in the end, they have to get it right. And the question of getting it right in terms of recent form, in terms of player selection, in terms of decisions, has not been in their favor. And so I totally get why people have questions about it right now.
Okay. We shall let you go because we do anticipate at some point here you have to be there for Patrik Allvin just earlier in the day, and still don't have an exact ETA on Allvin. We will be going to Patrik Allvin live once he steps the podium at Rogers Arena. But there was talk earlier in the day he was going to go early, lest the Canucks do nothing. So it didn't sound like there was a whole lot that was busy this morning from an early hour. Patrick, they seem to be forecasting that this wasn't going to be.
Let me ask you, what's with Curtis Douglas?
He's huge.
Well, I mean, listen, you had to make a claim, right? Like the fact, I do think it's a bit weird that the waiver deadline on this day is an hour. There's a waiver deadline and then there's a trade deadline. Like, I guess if you're at 11 o'clock, you don't know what you're doing. You go pick up the giant winger because you need players, right? Like, thanks for reminding me because I went and talked about how they don't have an extra skate. Well, they do now, so it's more than likely I have to just not get back in the lineup.
Oh, can you imagine?
I guess. I mean, it was funny. I found myself thinking of it as soon as I looked at this guy and I'm like, oh, he's got 8 fights. There was a big talking point earlier in the week about how literally this team had not shown very much fight on Monday night, right? Like how dire the effort on Monday was. Now, they were a lot better against Carolina on Wednesday, even in a loss, right? There was a lot more spirit and heart and all that kind of stuff. So literally they've added a guy who will add some pushback over the final 20 games of the season. And I suppose if the reality is, right, you're playing a not very good lineup and you're playing all these dog games, you need to give the fans something. So why not go back to the good old days?
There it is.
Let's just go crazy.
Yep.
So
I think that might be it.
Basically, you were taking a page out of Slapshot here.
Yeah.
You were looking for
100%.
You were looking for fascinations, spectacles, sideshows. You are basically selling the Thrashers to Atlanta right now, like it's some expansion
I would
team.
guess, guys.
And you need some big tough guy to fit the stereotypical hockey player role to be able to trot him out and sell
8-game
to a public
homestand.
that knows the hockey itself is not going to entertain
8-game
them.
homestand in March, guys. I would say you have a 50-50 chance on any of those nights of seeing Curtis Douglas fight.
Yep.
Over under 3.5 fights.
And Curtis Douglas knows
in those 8
too.
games.
That's the other thing.
Yes, and Curtis Douglas probably knows it.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Alvin in 10 minutes. So
Very
you get skedaddling. Thank you for this. Much obliged,
Okay,
sir.
guys.
And we will catch up next week. Patrick Johnston of the Province and Postmedia, columnist on the Vancouver Canucks beat. Okay, so let's get to our top story. Quiet deadline day for the Vancouver Canucks. This brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. 2 Kibbles and Bits trades. They send David Kampf to Washington for a 2026 6th-round pick. They send Lucas Reichel to Boston for a 2026 6th-round pick. So they continue to amass draft picks, but these are very low-currency draft picks that were added today. That said, and as previously mentioned, with the moves of Conor Garland last night and with the move of Tyler Myers earlier in the week to the Dallas Stars, they are sitting at surplus draft picks in each of the next 3 drafts. So I guess even 4 because there's a 2029 pick involved as well here. So it's 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 3 6th in this current year. So that makes 10.
Did we clarify that this year it's just the added 3rd and 6th? for the added picks for this year are just the 3rd round and the 6th round from this week.
From this week,
Yeah.
yes. The Hughes trade had added the first in this draft from Minnesota. The Sherwood trade added a 2nd from San Jose.
Yeah.
But it is 10 picks in this draft. It is 9 picks in 2027 with an additional 2nd added via the Tyler Myers trade. And it is also 9 picks in 2028 with an additional 2nd added by the Columbus Blue Jackets in the Conor Garland trade. So surplus draft picks for the next 4 drafts for the Vancouver Canucks, because remember, Dallas flipped them a 2029 4th to get Tyler Myers alongside that 2027 2nd. But veterans with term, Myers, Garland out. Who stays? Elias Paterson, Drew O'Connor. There's a lot of buzz on O'Connor. I'm actually a little surprised O'Connor wasn't moved, because I think he would have been a very attractive player at a very attractive price point for a lot of playoff teams and contenders. I would like to know what the Canucks price was on that, but that's what I'm okay with holding, Blake, because I think you could still reap a very good return on Drew O'Connor in the offseason. But Paterson, Besser was always a long shot, but there was some activity. The Islanders there. He stays as well. DeBrusk, who earlier this week said he wanted out, then walked back those comments. He stays as well. O'Connor. And then on the defense side things, look, I had heard the chatter, given the prices for right shot defensemen, I think it was well in the Canucks' interest to go see what people were going to give them for Philip Roenick, despite the no-move clause. I always thought that to be the longest of long shots. Marcus Paterson is just having a shockingly bad year. I'm not sure what his value would have been with, again, an immediate contract extension they gave Marcus Paterson. How does that look a year later? Dear God.
Did you say 9 picks this year or 10?
10 this year.
What am I missing here? I've got 2 in the 1st, 2nd, and 6th.
The Washington pick in the 6th round.
I think it's in the 7th. I think it's in 2027 though.
Oh, I have it. I'm looking at it here as a 2026.
Really?
Pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get
it
some.
May not have been added to your website yet. It is also possible. I'm looking at the TSN page. It's also possible that I'm mistaken, or TSN is mistaken. Both of us are mistaken on the year. But thank you for vetting my math. That's always
there we
a good
go.
idea.
I just want to make sure I'm on the same page here.
Always a good idea to vet math. I mean, math is hard.
Neither one of us took math.
I have grade 10 math. They said you won't always have a calculator with you. Guess what, Teach? I always have a calculator with me now, thanks to the smartphone. Okay, where was it? Okay, so the veterans with term stay and 2 UFA stay in Teddy Bluger and Evander Kane. And Blake, I think that's what's going to tip it for a lot of Canucks fans. That disappointed you're hanging on to the 2 UFAs. I have a very good reply here. Let's see if I can get it from someone in my Twitter comments who are saying, hey, I would have liked to have seen Bluger traded too, but really he's the only one that wasn't traded that I hoped would be traded because I didn't think there was a market for Evander Kane. I'm paraphrasing this response here. I can understand that, but I think for a lot of Canucks fans, the inability to trade Bluger and Evander Kane probably tips this deadline, even the totality with Garland, Myers, Sherwood, into fail if we're on the pass-fail side.
I'm assuming that Allvin gets asked about the why he didn't move, and I'm going to guess, and I hope he says it, but right now I'm guessing. We talked about this with David Pagnotta yesterday, and he thought this was the case. They had a minimum bar for Teddy Bluger. I think most of us on this desk, and you watching and listening, would have taken anything for Teddy Bluger, as you laid out earlier, Matt. You just keep knocking down the price until Teddy Bluger moves. I think most of us would have operated that way. Because I think they want to keep Teddy Bluger for next year, I think it was a minimum bar. And if he wasn't going to bring them back X, whether that's a 4th or a 5th, they weren't going to go any lower than that. I think that's the only explanation, because the minute Washington's asking about Kampf, wouldn't you just say you can have the better player if you'd like? Like the deadline had already come and gone. Why wouldn't you want Bluger for a 6th if you're the Washington Capitals. So it doesn't make much sense.
Are you ready for this, partner?
Yeah.
We had talked about last week, the week before. The owner almost never talks. The president of the team, Michael Doyle, almost never talks. Apparently, the Canucks are not going to stream at Patrik Allvin on their social media or website.
What?
Okay, good, because I can't find it anywhere.
So it sounds like they just want this to go out to the people who are in the room right now.
They don't want mass consumption.
They don't want mass consumption of Patrik Allvin's post-deadline press conference.
That is shocking.
I mean, that is below the standard of a professional sports club, especially a Big Four professional sports club in today's day and age. I mean, you always stream and provide that content to your fans and customers.
Absolutely shocking.
I mean, it's what media availabilities are for. They're for a broad audience.
I don't even know what to say to that. Like, you're going backwards.
This is what Jeff is telling me.
years.
Jeff is in the room there, and he's saying, I'm told the Canucks are not streaming Allvin. In which case, we will listen in on Allvin and report to you on Patrik Allvin. Now, broadcasters can stream, can
With
carry
their own
Patrik
cameras,
Allvin live if they so choose. Now, you get into Sportsnet and TSN prioritizing which markets they want to go to. If you have multiple general managers going on at the same time, there used to be a day and age when the Canadian 6, now Canadian 7, would work with each other a little bit so that there wasn't conflicting press conferences going on at the same time. But if there are press conferences, competing press conferences across the 6 or across the 7 Canadian markets, then your TSNs and your Sportsnets have to choose which one they bring to your television set and to their live broadcast. Now, look,
Big trade elsewhere just landed. They're still coming in here. 101, Nazem Kadri to the Avalanche.
Wow. Okay, so the Avalanche were working on Kadri, and I'd heard, I want to say it was Brian Lawton, say that the trade, or it may have been Kiprio, say that the whatever trade that they had worked out, Colorado and Calgary for Kadri, was nixed by somebody on the ownership side, and whether that was Flames or Avalanche, don't know. So it seems like they recast that one. And so we'll walk back that, when we were listing off the big pieces that didn't move here at the deadline, we will walk back Nazem Kadri because he does seem to be or is reportedly on the move here.
Allvin has started. He says he didn't get any offers today for Ted Bluger or Evander Kane.
Well, did he make any offers on him? Like, it's a two-way street. Okay, no one's calling, but there are teams out there that are looking to fortify the center spot, penalty killing with Teddy Bluger. It's preventing you from picking up the phone and calling others and saying, hey, how about a blank for a round pick for Bluger?
I mean, that's fine and well. That may have happened, but ultimately you need the offer going the other way to consummate a deal.
No, I understand that, but please tell me you weren't sitting around the room waiting for the phone to ring. That's not how this works. I mean, Brian Burke taught this market years ago about the importance of marketing your players, right?
Yeah.
And about having trade relationships. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So be it. You keep an eye on Patrik Allvin and the other things he say. I will get on to the other matters. We mentioned Curtis Douglas claimed on waivers from the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Canucks have also recalled Ty Mueller from Abbotsford. Now, he played a couple of games last year towards the end of the season. They had 3 extra bodies there in Chicago, lest they have to replace people on trade deadline day. And it turns out that they are going to have to replace at least David Kampf here on trade deadline day, who is off to the Washington Capitals. One would hope that means that Atu Ratu gets back in the lineup, but Mueller plays center as well. So there have a couple of options there at center ice in place of David Kampf. Lucas Reichel, of course, was with the Abbotsford Canucks, not with the big club. So he he does not have to be accounted for on the NHL roster. Now, you may have noticed the premium pick for Conor Garland. The second-round pick is a 2028 second-rounder, so a couple of years down the queue, much like the Tyler Myers premium pick, a 2027 second-rounder. So again, going to wait out a year on that one before getting to make that selection. We talked about this yesterday in terms of it being a double-edged sword. Number one, that the Canucks are taking longer-range draft picks on means they do understand this is going to be a longer-term rebuild and are not necessarily wedded to the idea of hitting the bottom and trying to pop right back up, particularly if you win the first overall and you convince yourself that a Gavin McKenna or an Ivor Stenberg in the near term is going to allow you to get back to competitiveness. So that's I guess I would call it good news for those of you who are committed to a longer-term rebuild or who understand that this is going to have to be over a number of years and maintain managerial discipline on the path at hand and the way forward. The second part is it takes an extra year or two to get those prospects circled into professional hockey, and so you can't count on them quite as soon, and that could extend a lack of competitiveness through the rebuild. Ian McIntyre spoke on this yesterday and said the Canucks want to draft picks in the future because it gives them flexibility to flip those picks if the team is good by then, or they just failed to get earlier picks in the 2026 draft. And again, if that is true, then that does open the window back up to how committed are you over a longer-term rebuild.
An expansion on the thought of the Bluger offers not being there, a quote from him, from Allvin. Again, look at the market today. It was very unpredictable. I didn't get any offers, so I was a little bit surprised there. Those two guys have been playing really well for us. And quote, I don't know if playing really well is accurate when it comes to Evander Kane, but
yeah.
It was a very unpredictable market. There was reporting, I believe it was Thomas Drance.
It's a slow market.
Thomas Drance was reporting as soon as, I thought earlier today or yesterday, that there were offers for Bluger and that they just didn't meet muster.
Well, no, but how could they not meet muster? You circle back and you go, okay, I know I told you no on a 6-rounder 2 hours ago, but I've got 30 minutes to the deadline, so now it's a yes.
Yeah.
Did those teams just move on?
I would guess so.
Holy lifting. Okay, let's get to a super chat here. Those of you on YouTube, that super chat button is always available to you. Hit it, make your donation. Half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. This one comes from Canucks fan 9420, who says, I believe the Canucks are stacking up on draft picks to use as currency in order to try and draft the Ruck Twins to play with whatever top 3 pick they get in this year's draft. Yeah, we have talked about the Ruck Twins in the past from Soyuz playing for Willie Desjardins, Medicine Hat Tigers. And boy, Liam has really improved his draft stock with the way they are filling up nets in the Western Hockey League. Ruck was more viewed as a second to third round prospect at the beginning of the year, but 93 points through 61 games, including 39 goals for the Tigers, has upped his lot in life. And then there's brother Marcus, who's the playmaker of the two. And these guys do fit neatly to the Henrik and Dank point totals because I gave you all the goals for Liam. Marcus has 18 goals, 74 assists in 61 games, Blake. It's a very Hank Sedin stat line. He's not quite the prospect Liam is in the eyes of evaluators, but he too looks like he can be a second-round pick the way he has played. Vancouver with the first pick in the second round, pick number 33, although in reality it will be the 32nd overall selection because the Ottawa Senators are, as of right now, forfeiting their first-round draft pick. Vancouver also with pick 44. That's as of this moment the San Jose Sharks pick, but that very much
depending on how they finish. What's interesting in the evaluation of these two prospects is there seems to be a delineation between the written journalists that follow the prospects and the broadcast. Like Liam, for instance, for the journalists, 35th by consolidated ranking, 39th by Smart Scouting, 42 by Daily Faceoff, 26 skate for North American skaters by Central Scouting.
That's a little dated, I should say, that list, Central Scouting.
McKean's 64th.
Some of that is dated, Blake. Some of it is
when it published.
Some of those services update every month.
Yeah.
Some are going quarterly or at mid-season, and so they're a little bit
behind. Yes, that could be it. But Button has got Liam at 22.
Yes.
Cosentino 25. Bukala at 24.
Cosentino updates monthly. Craig typically updates a fair bit. So yeah. The Canucks were tied once again to Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
Outside of a Paterson trade, even.
Which is chilling. Well, I mean, Blake and I were talking about that. Like, if you're interested in Kotkaniemi, it's because Carolina's going to give you something to take the contract off your hands.
You would hope.
Right? It's not because you're sitting there going, oh, it's a 25-year-old centerman. We need centermen. And, oh, it's a good defender. He's played 500 games. We know what he is. We know what he isn't. And what he isn't is somebody who's earning the money on the contract he has. So, yeah. And, boy, and I know they don't necessarily have the same volume of fans who follow the ins and outs of the National Hockey League, its cap, its trade deadline day, its CBA and all that down in Raleigh that they would in a Canadian market like ours. But if you're a Hurricanes fan, I think you're absolutely furious today. You have a wide open Eastern Conference. You have cap space galore.
And you haven't invested in your team.
You have not made it to the Stanley Cup final. You've hit your head at the Final Four, or even worse than that, year after year after year. You have this new age, brilliant general manager. Eric Tulsky's got so many fans in the industry. And last year you took the big swing on Mikko Rantanen. Maybe that was it. He was chilled. But last year you took the big swing on Mikko Rantanen. Where was the swing this year?
Couple of items discussed by Allvin. Says they did have talks about taking bad contracts back along with assets, but nothing came to pass there. And a quote for you: the fans should be happy and excited that we're not starting from scratch with regards to the rebuild. It's comments like that worry me a little bit, again, about how long they are intending.
How can they not
on being in the rebuild?
How can they not view this as scratch? These are the opening months of the rebuild.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to think. How can he just? So he might be thinking, well, we've got Zeev William, we've got Liam Mogren, we've got Marco Rossi in the Quinn Hughes trade, and so that's not scratch. We're further ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, he name checked Coots?
No, he didn't name check. I'm just guessing where his head's at.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The New York Islanders get Braden Shen and pay a very healthy price for a older centerman. I mean, at one point, Braden Shen, a fantastic player and a Stanley Cup champion. But a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and a prospect. And there was suggestion the prospect might be pretty good, too, when that was said and done. Okay, it's a conditional first-round pick. It's a third-round pick. There is a prospect, although he doesn't immediately jump off the page. And St. Louis is taking back the Jonathan Drouin money on that deal, Blake. And I want to say Drouin has one more year at $4 million. So St. Louis takes some bad money back there to facilitate that trade. But I bring them up because the Islanders were connected to a couple of Vancouver Canucks players here in the late going of trade deadline day. And previously, we had heard them. There was the report earlier in the week, Stefan Rosner covering the Islanders, that they were down the road on a Conor Garland trade. I do believe there was a lot of confirmation on that the Islanders were one of the Conor Garland suitors. The word there is that they stood firm on a second-round pick and a middling prospect. That was the offer on Conor Garland. It was not getting any better than that. It wasn't good enough for the Vancouver Canucks, who I guess preferred the second-round pick and the third-round pick that the Columbus Blue Jackets gave them. The prospect is actually a reasonable goaltending prospect in that trade as well, Blake, that goes to St. Louis from the Islanders. So that's a significant price. So the Islanders pivot away from Conor Garland. Then all of a sudden they're getting connected to Brock Besser because they're looking for a forward. They're looking for a winger. Didn't come to pass with Besser either. Braden Shen winds up being the addition to the New York Islanders. And Blake and I both, as we were sitting there updating Twitter, making calls, texts, and getting a sense on what was going on trade deadline, you and I were both watching that Kings-Islanders game last night. Holy cow, there have been a couple of times, Blake, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I guess since they came back. Actually, no, even before they went to the Olympics, where I found myself flipping around the dial, have found a New York Islanders game, have seen Matthew Schaefer play and skate, really just the way he skates. And that has arrested me and left me on a New York Islanders game for several periods. He makes skating look like the most effortless, natural act in the world. Like, there are few skaters that I have watched over 40 years of watching the NHL that make it look more seamless and more beautiful than Matthew Schaefer.
And it's funny how
He's
all
gorgeous to watch.
It's funny how they're all different, right? Like, Makar is a little bit different than Hughes. Hughes, the edge work is just so far and away. Yeah. Makar's sort of a both ways. Schaefer, his straight ahead. Like, he's almost like the defensive version of McDavid. You know, like
McDavid has that first couple of steps acceleration that is just on another planet. Nothing I've ever seen. Schaefer, though, but you see the effort that Connor requires to get to that, right? Like, I don't want to say it's clunky. It's not clunky, but it's stressed. Schaefer just seems to hit a top gear seamlessly.
And he just makes a little bit of a move here and there to get around players. He's intoxicating to watch, and he's been so good since the Olympics, Matt. I have been I have been wondering, like, what would the Olympics have looked like if Schaefer was there?
Ditto, especially with some of the trouble they had in transitioning.
Yes.
And getting the rush game working against those teams that were specifically defending against the rush game.
By the way, Conor Garland's wearing 83 for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Don Waddell just spoke. He's just about to arrive, and he's going to play tomorrow versus Utah. So he'll be jumping into the lineup tomorrow. If you want to see what Conor Garland looks like in a Jackets uni,
who would?
You'll want to wait 24 hours.
Who would? Who cares what number he's wearing there, Blake?
There's a lot of people that were Conor Garland fans, Matt. There were. I'll count you as not one of them, but there were many.
Well, I was until the last few months when he just flat quit because his buddy got traded to Minnesota.
And that's one of the
too precious, not professional enough. Bye-bye.
That's one of the things to look forward to for the Vancouver Canucks here.
Who gives a shit?
The room should improve. And yes, Elias Paterson is still an issue there for sure.
And subtracting Tyler Myers is an issue there as well.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. But I think the insidious bravado that was part of there and the decampment, not the decampment, that also happened, the decamping that went in the room. I think, like, I don't know who's left that you have to be concerned about, because as much as Elias Pettersson is a cause of concern, it's not about decamping. He just doesn't exist really in that room, I don't think. I think he keeps to himself to a problematic level. But I don't see anybody left, especially with Thatcher Demko not around these days. I don't see anybody left that's going to be decamping.
Yeah. Can I just get back to this lack of streaming the Allvin press conference for a second? No.
It's ridiculous.
Honestly, first of all,
they don't have the internet there.
Chances that we'll hear that there was some technical issue that prevented it, I think, are probably pretty good. Secondly, it tells, like,
they're scared.
Usually at trade deadline, even if you're unsure whether it's work that is going to be positively received by your fans and customers, you have a spokesperson, a general manager or president of hockey operations that you trust to go out there, put the best organizational face on it, quell some of the concerns and questions, and finish the session with your fans and customers feeling better about it than before you started. that they didn't stream it on their social media channels tells me they are petrified.
Yeah, they're scared what you think of it. They are. A couple of other notes. Allvin says Evander Kane is playing tonight. Ty Mueller has not been called up. So that was sort of, I guess, in the hopper if a couple of other trades happened.
Yeah.
But Kane is going to play. He also was asked about if there were conversations today about Elias Paterson. He says, no, we didn't talk to him about any changes here.
Well, they didn't talk to him.
They didn't bring it to him.
I think operative there.
Yeah, they didn't bring it to him.
Sounds to me like there were tire kickers on Elias. And look, it is not uncommon. And especially after the Canucks signaled how panicked and desperate they were with the Conor Garland trade and for me, light return. But it is common practice in professional sports circles. And I think this happened to the Vancouver Canucks this week. When others sense blood in the water, what's the line? They're not throwing you a preserver, they're throwing you an anchor. I'm going to guess there were GMs who checked in on Paterson today just to see if it gotten to the point where the Canucks were willing to give him away.
I think that's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah. Further
to the rebuild competition with the Calgary Flames, they just got Brennan Othman from the Rangers.
Wow. One-time first-round pick, had an extraordinary draft plus one season where people were going, holy cow, look at the Rangers got this incredible winger.
He has been nothing since. Yeah.
He hasn't done a whole lot since.
He's played 42 games in the NHL, so they've given him a decent look.
Yeah,
one goal, 2 assists.
Yeah, he hasn't scored at all. What's the return there? I bet you they gave the Rangers a pick for him because I don't think the Rangers were giving him away. Also don't know what the Nazem Kadri return is just yet, but he was moved to Colorado.
Back to the Colorado Avalanche for a reason. Yeah, no price.
I do think we're going to get over 20 trades, though, here by the looks of it, Blake.
And, again,
because there's a whole lot of
the post-noon, is the deadline noon, Matt, or what? This is also what gives the NHL a bit of a black eye.
I am told it is noon, but,
we had a dozen trades Blake, since noon?
It's noon, but if you've got a really good relationship with Coley or somebody in there, maybe you get the benefit of the doubt on things right at the wire.
There wasn't even a sniff of Kadri to the point where people were starting to write the post-op of why didn't the Flames move Kadri. Those were already paragraphs deep by the time there was even a sense that Kadri was being dealt here.
I believe it's 19 deals as of this moment, although, again, more can come in. And I want to get to this, and this is not apples to apples, but I don't necessarily think it's apples to eggs either, by way of comparison. I saw Bruff tweet this last night, and I went, oh, my God, can you imagine? 10 years ago, everybody, for those of you who are old enough to remember, Jim Bennings stepped to the podium for the Vancouver Canucks on trade deadline day, hair perfectly coiffed and darkened. And fresh dip, shoe polish, and
swirl cone dip.
Lamented that he was not able to trade Dan Hamhuis, who had trade protection. He was not able to trade Radim Verbata, who was a quality NHL player, and just about everybody else talking about how nobody wanted their players, and he would have loved to have recouped draft picks. They spent the next decade wandering the woods, directionless as an organization, before finally getting to a deadline, this one, where they collected draft picks. Of course, draft picks take time. So 10 years later, they're going to ask for more patience.
Yeah, or there's going to be a lot of action in early June and late May. And that's possible, too. We'll see what kind of action. The big question for me, Matt, is have they done enough here that they've satisfied the owner that they get to make those moves? And again, we can say everything that we want. You at home can say whatever you want. But will the owner say, you've done enough, I've got the confidence in you, you can make the critical moves before July 1st?
And Blake, the one thing we're discounting here, and the one thing that could possibly make Francesco Aquilini a unknown hero for Canucks fans, is if he put foot down today on some of the moves they were willing to make on veterans with term, going, no, that's not enough, and you don't have my full confidence to make that deal yet. We'll talk about those in the summer, whether it's them or somebody else making those moves.
You confused me with put foot down. You meant foot without a knee, not foot with a knee. Now I see what you're saying. I was like, what do you mean he put a foot down? He may have put foot down, too.
Either way.
Yeah. Both of them might have been put down.
And I don't want to say Francesco grew up entitled, but he was born with a silver foot in his mouth. Not my line.
We do have a Canucks reporter in the building.
We have Jeff Paterson in the building.
Have
Jeff is logged in here. Let's hear about Yellow Dog first, and then we'll move on.
Lots of fun stuff coming up from Yellow Dog. I'll get you the new stuff, like the on sale stuff for this month. Back to telling you about sale beer. The Yellow Dog Squirrel Chaser Hazy Pale Ale, the 4-packs, on special for the month of March. Look for it on sale at your private and government liquor stores. The Squirrel Chaser's on sale, the Play Dead is on sale, and the Chase My Tail is on sale. March is Yellow Dog month. Go check it out.
All right, Jeff Paterson, our Canucks reporter, the host of RinkWide Vancouver. They'll be busy tonight with the Canucks in Chicago to face Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks. And Jeff has just finished listening to Patrik Allvin's media availability. I'm just seeing some of the clips, Jeff, too. It was a scrum, too, huh? They didn't put him on a riser or a podium in the media room.
No, and I don't know if that's his preferred method, but he did it on Wednesday the same way. And here he was again today addressing the media in that fashion. So, we had about 15 minutes with the general manager of the Vancouver Canucks. He spoke about what he did and what he wasn't able to do here at the trade deadline, and about the direction of this hockey club moving forward now. Nothing earth-shattering. He was trying to put the positive spin on that they accomplished a fair bit of what they had set out to do here this week. Of course, I think like a lot of people, I went to bed last night fired up that, hey, Conor Garland's moved out of the way here. Now their Friday is clear. They can hit the ground running up until the deadline. And, of course, it sort of fizzled up until those final minutes when they moved off the depth contracts of Kampf and Reichel. But I guess you have to look at the deadline in totality, and that is the week that was, not just the hours that were here on Friday morning. And so they did accomplish, I think, one of their goals, to move veterans with term, but also left a lot of us wanting just a little bit more.
What stood out to you from Allvin's comments, Jeff? Because for us, it was the lack of offers on Teddy Bluger and, why he wasn't driving that process, but also that the fans should be happy because they're not starting from scratch. Maybe let's start with that second one. The fans should be happy, Jeff, because they're not starting from scratch.
Be happy!
Provide the context there, my friend.
What, you're not happy? They're 32nd in the league and sinking like a stone. That was curious, certainly. I don't think they're really in a position to tell the fans what to think. I mean, the fans will judge for themselves, and their work is there on display on a nightly basis, and it hasn't been anywhere close to good enough all season long here. So the idea they're not starting from scratch, I mean, that's part of the reason that they're in the predicament that they're in, isn't it? That their highest paid player has woefully underperformed, but it's not just him. But the trickle down there is that the lack of center depth, which was an issue going into the season, has impacted the wingers greatly. DeBrusque, Besser, Garland, you pick them. There isn't a winger outside of Drew O'Connor that really has exceeded expectations on this hockey club this year. So not starting from scratch, but maybe not far off scratch than just looking at sort of what they have here moving forward. And I didn't get into it today because there will be a year-ender, and that will probably be the better time. But it does make you wonder a little bit, guys, about the direction of the hockey club. And you can make the jokes, the direction. There's only one way to go, and that's up. But they've had bad teams here for a lot of years, right? We've seen that. We've all lived through it. They've never been this bad in the modern era, and they certainly have never been 32nd in the National Hockey League and dead last in the standings. And so this idea of improving the hockey club measurably in the short term, there's their last place team. They've got no star power. They don't have the bells and whistles of a practice facility. I do wonder how difficult it's going to be to attract anybody to come and play here this summer. A year from now, if they show signs of progress and they look like they're getting out of the wilderness, maybe it'll be a little bit easier, and maybe some teams and or players and agents will see that as well. But in the here and now, why would a free agent choose to come to the Vancouver Canucks?
No, there's no reason, Jeff. Like even taxes, you can get into myriad of reasons.
Right.
Look, Vancouver remains one of the most desirable cities to live in the world over. And at some point that will work in the Canucks' benefit. But you're quite right. The totality of reasons not to on the other side of the ledger would prevent. But
that's why we applauded the Ryan Strome to Calgary.
Do you even want them getting free agents this summer? Like, but there's that argument as well.
But
right?
the Ryan Strome to Calgary was a great example of a creative thing that Calgary can use that guy for a few months and then flip him. And we wondered about that yesterday. There was no creativity there.
You say that, Blake, but clearly that was the design. When they acquired Evander Kane last year, clearly the idea was play him for the season and get something, and in their minds probably thinking they were going to get more than they paid for him at the trade deadline. And I think there's a lesson here for Evander as well. Like, he's culpable in this. If he had played better, if he had been more engaged, if he had looked like a piece that teams around the league thought, yeah, he's still got it, that's what we need for our playoff push and ultimately for the playoffs. He wants to play beyond this season. He wants a contract. Like, I think this year is going to lead Evander Kane, and pardon this because there's kids lacrosse going on here. I didn't realize on game days that there are not just the big show tonight. There's kids lacrosse going on here at Rogers Arena. But like, I kind of feel like Evander Kane's going to have to accept a PTO to show himself in the preseason and earn a contract because this year has gone so quietly for him. And when you ask what stood out from Patrik Allvin, one of the questions I asked him was, like, philosophically now, you had to showcase David Kampf and Evander Kane. I understand that. I think the fans understood that. There's 21 games to go. They owe Evander Kane nothing at this point. They owe him his paychecks on payday. But like, in my world, I'm not sure that Evander Kane needs to play another game for the Vancouver Canucks if it's going to be in the way of some of those young guys. Like Max Sasson and Aatu Räty have been patient. They have waited. Sasson got into the lineup the other night. I think he's playing again here tonight. But like, there should not be a world in which anybody is scratched for Evander Kane over the final 21 games. Now, sort of a sidebar to that is, and I don't know if you've discussed this, Evander's 11 games away from 1,000 in the National Hockey League.
Does he get there?
It could happen on the Vancouver Canucks watch. It would be one of the more awkward ceremonies, I would think, in recent memory here at Rogers Arena to salute a guy that hasn't been here. I mean, he's been here one season, but it's been a last place season. He's been a part of all that, and you're feting him for 1,000 years. But a local guy, and
I was just going to say, Jeff, at least it's in his hometown. And look, it would have been awkward in any other market in the NHL as well. But you're quite right.
He needs to play half the games.
As for the other stuff about playing, no loyalty to Kane and playing the kids, Mayor of Wrightville, right, Jeff?
Did you get any light shed on Aatu Räty's situation here going forward?
Well, just that Patrik Allvin agreed with my premise when I put the question, basically that you know, the veterans cannot stand in the way of the growth and development. And he agreed with that. And he said that, you know, there are some players that they want to get a look at down in Abbotsford. He named Kirill Kudratsev, who's been out for a while, but apparently is returning to the Abbey lineup tonight. Now, there was some confusion as well because there was a report that Ty Mueller had been recalled. The hockey club says that's not the case and that Ty Mueller is not in Chicago with the Vancouver Canucks and will play in Abbotsford. Of course, Ty Mueller has seen the NHL ice a couple of games late last season. You know, but I also asked, like, you know, it's not just about plugging young players and giving them a chance, even though the Canucks are playing out the string here. And Patrik Allvin said, like, they got to make sure that these guys are, you know, veteran enough. I say veteran, even some of the, like, I'm looking at is Sawyer Minio worth a look at this point? Vilmer Alriksson, you know, do you just leave them down in the minors and continue to ply their trade there? Are they ready for NHL looks? They've still
college free agents too, Jeff. They'll be hopefully hoping to bring a college, and they usually get some games by way of their decision.
Yeah, and he said that yes, that is certainly something that they're looking at. Didn't get too deep into the weeds there, but it was brought up. And so you're right. That may be another avenue that they're looking at in terms of guys that they want to slot in. They may not even be in the organization at this very moment, but we shall see. But yeah, youth, I think basically what he was saying is that, yes, youth shall be served here over these final 21 games.
Although Curtis Douglas comes in and eats up some playing time, and I don't know that I'm that much of a fan of that, given I'd rather see all these other guys rather than 26-year-old Curtis Douglas.
I've got time for this signing, and not this player particularly, though. At 6'9", I mean, I am curious to see what he looks like in a Vancouver Canuck uniform. But let's be honest. I mean, this team, even with Kiefer Sherwood, but particularly since they dealt Kiefer Sherwood, has lacked a true identity, has lacked a lot of physicality. Kiefer Sherwood would hit anything that moved, but he wasn't a deterrent in the true sense of the word. There wasn't a ton of intimidation factor with a guy like Kiefer Sherwood. He was just honest and tried to finish every check that was available to him. This is a different animal. And if you're going to incorporate all these young guys and you want to make sure that other teams aren't taking liberties with them, you want to provide them with a safe working environment, I don't mind for zero acquisition cost claiming a guy on waivers. And so when I saw him go on waivers yesterday in Tampa, I thought, you know what, that's probably a player that's worth a shot for the Vancouver Canucks. And you've got these 21 games here to see what he can do. I mean, I think we know what he can do. Can he find willing dance partners on the other side at this stage of the season? I suppose we shall see on that front. But I'm okay. I think moving forward, this is something that the Vancouver Canucks, as they go about the idea of reconstructing and rebuilding this roster, like, I think there are a lot of people that want to see them have a few players that have that backbone, that bring a physical element that they've just been way too easy. Forget about the score clock. They've been way too easy to play on the ice for much of this season and really the last couple of seasons. And so I did wonder, just philosophically, if this management group believed in having and employing this kind of player. So as much as I thought it might make sense, I wasn't sure that they'd go through with it, but they have now, and we'll see. Tampa's in Toronto. They were in Winnipeg last night. The Canucks are in Winnipeg tomorrow. If Curtis Douglas had known, he could have just stayed in Winnipeg and met them there, but that's not how it works. But Patrik Allvin thought that he wouldn't play tonight, but he probably will join the team in Winnipeg for Saturday.
Jeff, we addressed Curtis Douglas before, earlier in the show. It's not about the hockey anymore. It's about come on down and see the sideshow freak at Rogers Arena. It's very much like an expansion team signing, right? He's 6'9", he's 240, and he fights. Honestly, exactly. Honestly, this is the sort of move that you could see from a hockey team playing in like a barnstorming league in Wichita, Kansas, or somewhere like that. Let me ask.
As we know, that player doesn't exist on every team.
No, I know it's going to work. It absolutely. You look at our mentions when we talk about Douglas. There are some who are absolutely
happy about it,
happy because they get to go see a fight at Rogers Arena. You're not going to watch the hockey or the home team win, for God's sakes.
I'm saying I don't know that you do, because there aren't those. Not every team has Curtis Douglas, and so finding that fight may not be as easy as you think on a lot of
honestly
nights.
Who would fight 6'9", 240 on skates?
But also, who's going to get that? Who's going to get that riled up playing the Canucks right now? Like you need emotion on the other side.
Unless somebody does something dirty, you're quite right.
And there's no stakes in any game with the Canucks.
So. No, and of course, why would you jeopardize what has been a pretty easy 2 points at Rogers Arena when you come to
get a concussion and be out?
Come to town, right? We don't need to try hard or give it our all or leave life and limb at Rogers Arena for 2 points. We just waltz in, play 20 minutes, and we're good.
On the entertainment side, Jeff, do you think that Adam Foote changes how he coaches the rest of the way here? Developmentally, just trying to get the best out of these players? Is there any chance that this team tries to do something just a little bit differently, given that he's got new guys coming in here? This is a complicated defensive system that has not worked at the best of times anyway. What do you expect to see here the last 21 games?
Yeah, I don't imagine that they'll be appreciably different visually and stylistically. I think Adam Foote has his beliefs that he has clung to, and they haven't worked particularly well for him in the hockey club this year, but I don't see him at this stage, upsetting the apple cart and painting outside the lines just because. So I think it's a fair question. There isn't a whole lot to play for. Professional pride. We can say, look at the young guys. And, I think the idea of truly assessing the growth and development, especially the defensemen, is difficult when the Canucks are just so ghastly in their own zone and on a nightly basis giving up so many offensive opportunities and ultimately so many goals. It's hard to sit here and say that, they got 21 games to go. So the previous 21 games, have I seen a ton of development in Tom Willander or Zeev Bouillon or DPD? Now you got Victor Mancini thrown into the mix here. I think it's going to be tough again to really, truly assess individual growth and development, but I do want to see opportunities for these guys. I don't need Phil Hronek and Marcus Paterson eating up 30 minutes each so that the other guys only have 10 minutes to play. Spread the ice time around. Philip Hronek's had a nice season for the Canucks, but you don't want to run him into the dust or run him into the ground. And so I think for me, what I want to see is opportunities. Opportunities for young guys to play at even strength, but also some of the special teams as well. They've started to incorporate Liam Ogren as a penalty killer. Great. I want to see that. Continue with that. DPD's had a nice couple of games here. There was the snarl at return the other night. I want to see if he can keep that up with sort of any level of consistency the rest of the way, because I do think that sets him apart on that blue line. I'd like to see Victor Mancini lean into his size and be more physical. I don't know if it's in him, because I still think he thinks at the NHL level that he can be a dangler. And they've got Bouillon, they've got Willander in front of him. I think if you're Victor Mancini, you got to take a long look here and think, what's going to allow me to carve out a National Hockey League career? It's not lugging the puck all over the ice. They've got other guys to do that. And so he's got the physical traits. I just don't know if it's in his DNA to sort of be mean, big, rugged. But I'd like to, I think on the right side, there's an opportunity for somebody like Mancini. But if he's not going to play that way, then they'll go and find somebody that will. So, he's getting to a point. He's going to turn 24 here before too long. There's still some runway, but not a ton of developmental runway for Victor Mancini. And so I am curious to see what these final games look like if he plays them, each and every one of them, the rest of the way.
I have two more questions for Jeffrey. One is, we have yet to ask you your take on the Conor Garland trade, Jeff. What did you make thereof?
Yeah, I think it was a good move for the hockey club to get off one of these veterans that we've been discussing for a while now. It just happened to be Conor Garland. I think Conor Garland's a way better player than he has shown here this season. Who's had a good year for the Vancouver Canucks? It's a pretty short list. Conor Garland's at his best when he's fiery and ferocious and feisty. I think all the losing has taken its toll. I think some of the injuries this year, we haven't seen that from Conor Garland much. I think he's been a little bit better of late than he was certainly through late December and into January. But I think for so many reasons, and I'm sure you've all addressed them, it's going to be 30 next week. The extension, the trade protection, the underperformance this year, all of those things were always going to limit his return. And the fact that the Canucks got off the extension without retaining a dollar, you kind of have to take the return that you got in the second and the third, and so be it. You add it to the collection of draft picks.
But it was a bargain, Jeff. There weren't many bargains on the deadline market, and Garland was different, no doubt, because of the 6 years.
But you saw it with Michael McCarron and Nick Hague. Teams still value size at playoff time, right? They're always Tyler Myers, Nick Delorier goes, Curtis Douglas gets picked up, although he's not going to the playoffs. But it's hockey, and till the end of time, the big, tall, strong guys are always going to get more shouts than a guy like Conor Garland, who, again, isn't everybody's cup of tea. I think the fact he's going to a team that's a point out of the playoffs right now, and every game matters for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the pot of gold at the end of that rainbow is that if they win enough, he's going to get to play playoff hockey. I hope that inspires him. I think that they will see a renewed and sort of a return to that Conor Garland that we saw during the playoff run here the playoff series a couple of years ago against Nashville and Edmonton. I have to catch myself anytime I suggest that was a playoff run.
No, that's fair.
But Garland's a better player, and we saw it. But we also saw, guys, that he's a unique player, and it took him a long time to sort of forge chemistry with anybody here because he's a unique player at his size. I do think that he has learned, and it makes sense. He's going to be 30. It comes with experience. But he didn't remember when they first acquired him. I think it drove some people in the organization nuts, all the spins and trying to do everything on his own. I think he realized that really didn't work at the end of the day for him or the hockey club. And he sort of got that out of his game. I think he's going to I'm excited to see what he can do. And I think the fact that he's playing games with stakes will bring out the best in Conor Garland, because I do maintain he's a better player than we saw this year. How do you go as long as he had the 23 games without a goal? But beyond that, that was an empty netter at Madison Square.
Oh, it is.
November 26th. November 26th. That's the last time that he's beaten a goaltender in the National Hockey.
Unbelievable. It was U.S. Thanksgiving. It was damn near Grey Cup the last time he scored.
And guys, his production was effectively matched. He's about to make $6 million a year. His production effectively matched this year by Linus Karlsson and Drew O'Connor. You can go and get the 0.4 points per game guy for a lot cheaper than $6 million a year.
But as Jeff says, he's better than that. He's got track record where some of these guys don't. And Columbus, at the very least, viewed it as a neutral, if not a positive, that he has cost certainty going forward. So there's a lot of ways you can splice the Garland deal. Blake and I have already disagreed on that. It sounds like Jeff's a little closer to your camp. So be it. Jeff, I was under the impression NHL clubs on their own media channels, and of course every sports organization these days, if you're not a media company or have a media arm, you're falling behind. I was under the impression that every NHL team streams its general manager's press conference on trade deadline day. It's a signpost day. Fans are anxious to hear from the general manager. What happened today that they didn't put Patrik Allvin on their own social media channels and on their website?
You're asking me to explain the inner workings of the Vancouver Canucks, Matt? I'm not sure I'm qualified. I don't know. I was surprised. I mean, we had these discussions that we thought that it was going to be the case, and then it wasn't. I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that some of the social team is in Chicago on a game day for the Canucks, and or if they just organizationally decided that they didn't want the GM's message to get out there, and yet he was asked point blank by Patrick Johnston to the fans. So the floor was his to speak to the constituents, and yet I'm sure they'll post it after the fact. But yeah, I'm a little surprised too that they didn't take the opportunity. And I guess that goes back to the way we started, that it was just Allvin and a collection of reporters rather than the general manager of a National Hockey League team at a dais or a podium speaking to the assembled group of questioners.
Very odd, if not telltale. You've had a busy day already. You got a busy one tonight. RinkWide Vancouver with Jeff after the game against the Hawks tonight in Chicago, and back at it again tomorrow after that matinee against Winnipeg. Jeff, thanks for this. We'll catch up Monday.
All right, guys. Sounds good. Thanks.
Jeff Paterson, the host of RinkWide Vancouver and our Canucks reporter, doing yeoman's work as per usual.
You telling me they're going to record that and then just disseminate what they want you to hear? Shocking.
Yep. Might just be the way they go about controlling the message on this one. Hey, we know what to expect from that lot. Our expectations were lowered many years ago.
Particularly from the comms department.
So let me just let's go down this road on Garland for a second. First of all, I saw James Cybulski's tweet on this. Good line, Seaball. Canucks have acquired more second-round picks in this trade cycle, 4, than they have wins in the calendar year, 2. It's March 6th. And I realize there's an Olympic break in there, but they're doubled up in terms of second-round picks to win.
That's the yay. The boo is their record in the second round lately.
Now, the other thing that we haven't mentioned yet, the dynamic at play last night as this Conor Garland trade is getting negotiated between the Canucks and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Because the Blue Jackets won again. That's 3 in a row. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. Since the old Canucks, Rick Bowness and Lawrence Gilman got there, they're the best team in the NHL. They won again, but they lost Mason Marchment to injury in game. I think they knew very early on, oh boy, one of the wingers we're counting on is going to be lost and maybe lost for a while here, because they are on the outside of the playoff bar looking in, but for the first time in a while, they're only 1 point back of the playoffs. And then thirdly, Port Moody's Kent Johnston looked awesome last night after being a healthy scratch recently. So you had all of these balls in the air for Don Waddell and his staff going, okay, are we ready to give up on Kent Johnston? The word was no, but others thought Johnston was priable out of Columbus. So you had the Johnston file at play. You had the Marchment injury at play. You had another win and an excited fan base. And it was not long ago where Columbus was expected to have a quiet deadline, hope they could keep the hot streak going and sneak into the playoffs, but they weren't going to trade their UFAs, and they have some pretty good UFAs there, including Coyle and Marchment, but they weren't going to spend a lot of assets to try and load up on this team. Not necessarily sure what it was. Blake, there's part of me that wonders whether they're watching the game last night go down and going, yeah, okay, time to get aggressive, and it came together quickly. If the Canucks had been able to get a Kent Johnston or a Caden Lindstrom who was failing out there, take a massive swing on young skill, Blake, I would have applauded that and said, you know what? At the very least, you got off the Conor Garland money and you took a big swing on a guy who could be a real difference maker.
A big swing, though, Matt.
And I'm not sure either of those guys were available.
No, that's
Probably
the thing.
not.
Like, I don't
but
think...
even a Cole Sillinger as a young forward.
No, not Cole Sillinger. Kent Johnston, yes.
But I think Cole Sillinger is going to be a third-line center when it's all said. We'll see. But 2 picks that are minimum 4 or 5 years away, 6, 7 years away from contributing.
Let me ask you this. Would you have sweetened to get Kent Johnston?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Yes. When we criticize them for not being creative, and Blake's already said, I'm not sure there was bad money that Columbus was eager to get off. Okay. So if you don't have the bad money sweetener, which St. Louis took advantage of with the Islanders today on Jonathan Drouin, then you sweeten to your side of the pot to juice the return.
Yeah, and maybe it was just a no-fly zone. I mean, I think they've seen Kent Johnston perform, and they're probably pretty sure at his young age that they can get something back.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like Canucks fans are looking at all these deals that went down and how expensive some of the prices were on guys like Corey Perry for a second-round pick. Conor Garland fetched a little bit more than Corey Perry, who's a 40-year-old UFA. I think Canucks fans are looking in at a lot of the prices that were paid on deadline acquisitions and going, oh, wow, yeah, it was a seller's market. Who got a bargain today? Who got a bargain yesterday? Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, maybe. That might be the
They
best
got a
bargain.
middle six winger at market value. Again, I'm viewing 6x6 as market value from what Conor Garland had shown previously, not what he's showing this year. Pinota told us yesterday, I said, Garland hasn't scored in forever. Kane, blah, blah, blah. And Pinota said to us, I think there's a sense around the league that everything has gone to pot in Vancouver, and that won't necessarily be held against them. Now, you certainly bring it up if you're Colorado or Columbus in the negotiation. But if Columbus was uncomfortable with the player, Blake, they wouldn't have added him with 6 years on the contract after this one, right?
No.
There were 4 teams in it at the end of the day. There were 8 teams in it earlier, and the Canucks weren't able to play one against the other, manipulate the market to get more on Garland. Man, opportunity missed, if you ask me.
The one thing I want to get into.
Oh, can we bring this up, Mike, the Bartner tweet? I just wanted to illustrate this a little further. Here's an Islanders guy. And look what he says. Garland is a solid second liner, and he only cost a second, a third. Isles were linked to Garland. Darsh, what the F? Islanders offered a second and a middling prospect. Wouldn't get off that.
Yeah, and so the second round pick gets added to the quiver for the Vancouver Canucks. And again, hear me out here. I'm not saying the Canucks shouldn't be rebuilding or that draft picks suck. What I'm going to say here is, again, who should be making these decisions going forward? The Canucks have all this draft capital now, and I would hope that there is more to come. Mm-hmm. In the last 6 NHL drafts, the Vancouver Canucks have just 2 second-round picks, incidentally. Neither one of them has played a game, Klimovich and last year in Medvedev. In totality, the last 6 NHL drafts for the Vancouver Canucks, do you know how many games have been played from all of those players? 6 NHL drafts.
So we're Coots, we're Vilander, we're EPD. Was Höglander 6 drafts ago?
7 drafts.
Okay, I figured. Hit me.
193 games.
Oh, my goodness.
Out of 6 drafts.
Yeah.
So, that's where you have to make some decisions here. Yes, you've got the draft picks, but this group has, and the one before for that matter, has not done a great job of bringing National Hockey Leaguers to the table here.
Honestly, Blake, I think Todd Harvey in this group has done reasonably well. Jury is still out on a lot of these guys, of course. You can quibble with Lekkerimäki, that too much of a one-trick pony, but EPD is already in the NHL as a third-round pick there. Kudryavtsev has played NHL games. Incredible 7th-round pick.
Elias Pettersson.
Ty Young has a chance.
Elias Pettersson is really the only guy, though, that's playing regular everyday work.
Mueller still has a chance. Bristevich was used as trade capital, and he's playing NHL games. That was a good third-round pick. Minio, out of that draft, still has a chance. Ulrichsen, we've talked about him. He's huge. Ferdstrom was used in trade capital to Pittsburgh, although he looks like he's better than a third-round pick. We have both talked about Riley Patterson and Anthony Romani and some of the things that they've accomplished.
Yeah, those aren't NHL games.
I understand, but they're so young, Blake. So there's still a ton of time there. In fact, I think you can make a case that the best work the Rutherford Allvin regime has done is at the draft table.
Okay. They've got to make these at-bats count.
And we got some sound for those of you on podcasts and visuals from Allvin coming up for a second. I wanted to ask you this. Dollywall reported that Garland's agent facilitated the deal. Our old friend Comets Corey noted, boy, he senses a theme here.
How many?
Do they ever need agents' help to make deals? And then, of course, if you have agents facilitating deals, it means their clients desperately want the fuck out.
Milstein couldn't make it work with Evander Kane. Remember, that goes back to late January when he got enlisted to help.
Yeah.
And apparently was working overtime to try to make it happen for Evander Kane.
Oh, I know. It is. And then lastly, with Garland out. So technically, Blake, it is, and that trade tree is not completed yet, but it is Dylan Guenther, who was the 9th overall pick in that draft, a 2nd-round pick, and a 3rd-round pick, a 7th-round pick as well, for Conor Garland, which is now a 2nd and a 3rd, and OEL, who is bought out and continues to haunt them on the cap as dead money.
Yep, and will for some time.
And there were many at the time who said, hey, this is a horrible trade by the Vancouver Canucks. And some people went, but they got Conor Garland. Of course, they also shed the salaries of Beagle, Eriksson, and Roussel, which was one of the big motivators.
Silver lining, compensation slots remains at 2. Retained slots remains at 2. So before that resets and Mikheyev comes off on July 1st, Canucks do have that in their back pocket surrounding draft activity.
That's right.
And people
good silver lining. Well done.
I'm kind of sick and tired of people's projections on what the busyness of a trade deadline or free agent frenzy is going to be like. But you have to be ready in case there is action. And the Canucks do have that at their disposal to help out teams, to retain, to launder, to do whatever they need to do to acquire more assets. Mm-hmm. And you should be happy. Should be happy.
I'm telling you how to feel. Let's also get the details here on this Nazem Kadri trade. Talking about the Flames and how they've accelerated their rebuild here. It is Nazem Kadri and a 2027 4th-round pick to the Colorado Avalanche. The Flames are retaining 20% on Kadri's salary, so that is not an insignificant amount of money. But when you're in a rebuild, of course, you're not going to sweat having to retain 20% of $7 million for the next 3 years. So you're retaining 1.4 per year. Very digestible for Calgary. What do you get in return? You're getting a conditional first-round pick. It's in 2028. You're getting a conditional 2027 second-round pick. You are getting third-line winger Victor Olofsson. And you're getting, by the looks of it, a prospect. I can't speak to how good or poor the prospect
What's
is.
Victor Olofsson's contract situation? I don't have it in front of me. If you're getting off that money sooner rather than later, probably something that the Flames.
Well, and Colorado was looking to upgrade that position, but I didn't necessarily. He's a UFA, Blake, at 1.5. So I didn't necessarily think they wanted to subtract, but maybe they had to make the money work. So there you go. Boy, this was a very busy trade season for Craig Conroy and Calgary. And we put the graphic up yesterday of how many goddamn picks the Flames have over the next 4 years. I mean, it only got added to today. And Blake, they didn't have to give up a pick for Brendan Othman. They gave up a second rounder from 2024 by the name of Jacob Battaglia, a winger who's actually
Bates' son?
He may well be, but he is backslid. He was a 90-point guy last year. He is a 43-point guy this year. A few fewer games, but okay. We have Patrik Allvin. Mike, you're going to have to let me know how this begins because we haven't seen this yet. But Patrik Allvin met the media earlier today at Rogers Arena. Where are we starting with here, buddy?
He starts by saying he got some work done with Quinn Hughes and Kiefer Sherwood. So then he goes
playing the hits. He played the hits off the top.
Some goals for this period of time. Just do you feel you achieved most of them?
Yeah, I mean, again, as I said before, the two big ones with Quinn Hughes and Kiefer Sherwood was done prior to this, and you never know when you're coming into this week what's going to happen, but our goal was to accumulate draft picks and potential players at 25 and younger, and we're pleased we're sitting here today with some extra picks moving forward. Not just this year. I thought it was important to spread them out over the next couple of years.
Last year, you didn't get the offers that you wanted for Brock and for Puce. Did it feel the same for Evander and Teddy today?
Again, look at the market today. It was very unpredictable. I didn't get any offers, so I was a little bit surprised. There been those two guys have been playing really well for us, and Teddy has been here for a couple of years now, and is a good player on the ice and a good player off the ice for us as well. And Evander Kane is a veteran player in the league. So we all know that the roster spots and cap space flexibility plays in. So, yeah.
With Teddy, will you now look at trying to keep him long-term?
We know that he likes it here, and, it's too early to tell where things are going here. But, I mean, again, Teddy is playing really well for us and is a good character guy.
When it comes to the Garland move, what were sort of the factors that came into that all happening last night?
Again, our intention last summer was to keep Conor here for long term. When things changed over the year here, we're, for us, looking into where we're heading, age-wise, where he was, and contract length gives us a little bit more flexibility moving forward here.
How about Douglas and claiming him off waivers?
Yeah, we've been with our young guys in the lineup. I don't want to, I want the players to feel safe. I don't want them to get beaten up, and we've been looking for a player like this with more size, physicality. So when he was available here, our group felt that he. Over the years, they watched him coming through the American League and in Tampa this year. We felt that would be a good fit for us and a free look here to see what what we have in Curtis, and he was excited for the opportunity to come to Vancouver as well.
Is there a chance he could play tonight, or?
He is in Toronto, so he will meet the team in Winnipeg tomorrow.
Patrick, I understand, like, trying to showcase, for lack of a better term, some of the guys that maybe you were trying to trade the veterans with expiring contracts. Philosophically now, with these final 21 games, like, do you have to get Aatu Räty and Max Sasson and those kinds of guys in on a regular basis?
Yeah, and even a couple other guys that we want to see up here too. So I would imagine there will be potentially a couple of guys that are going to rotate in and out here. I think it's too early yet. I was just talking to Footer here on the phone prior to going down here, but as of today in Chicago, there are 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. And we'll see what we come out with after the game. Lekkmäki having surgery, and then we'll see how Abbotsford are doing and how the players are performing. I know Kudratsev is scheduled to play down there tonight as well, so we'll see here over the next couple of days, but definitely want to see some younger players in the lineup, and for us to get a chance to continue to evaluate them and see what we have here. So far, we're very pleased with the young guys that we have, and the character and the growth in their games. So that's important for us.
Patrick.
A few interesting things there I want to get to just quickly. Curtis Douglas, he just flat out said it, wanting players to feel safe, looking for that type, saying he was looking for that type of profile player for a while. I wonder if they feel like the liberties on Philip Hedl earlier in the season, and I think that's even more condemnation of Evander Kane, right? Because I thought Evander Kane was supposed to help protect some of your young guys and lighter players. And in fact, yesterday, the Vancouver Canucks, after making the Tyler Myers trade, checked in as the lightest team in the National Hockey League, averaging like 180-some pounds per player. So Douglas will help that at 6'9", 240.
In this day and age, I really don't think it does anything. I really don't.
I mean, tell me you're an old school hockey man without, well, he actually just did tell you he was an old school hockey man.
Like, a lot of the pests are undersized. Like a pesky player lays a questionable hit. You telling me the pesky player is going to drop the mitts with the 6'9" guy?
Yeah.
Like, he's almost too big. Like, he can't be a patrolman. Like,
on talking about having more flexibility without the Conor Garland contract going forward, I'm not going to say he's wrong. I'm not going to say he's wrong there or that he's inaccurate, but understand, because that flexibility, you may very well need that flexibility towards the later years of this contract extension. But you certainly don't need that flexibility in the near term, Blake.
No.
So, the picks are well down the road, or at least the prime pick, the second rounder, is well down the road. Whoever they take in the third round this year is well down the road. The flexibility benefit is well down the road. And again, like $6 million on Garden could look better and better if he's the player we know he can be going forward. I'm so entirely underwhelmed by the Garland deal. I know some people love it, but I just can't get there. I just can't get there. Okay. Last bit of business here. No Elias Paterson deal. He remains a Vancouver Canuck through another trade deadline. I know you're not surprised that he wasn't moved here this week, Blake, but what do you think? Final 20 games of the season prior to the draft. Are we watching the end of Elias Paterson? Will he be the next big name to go following all these Canucks stalwarts that we have seen leave the franchise in the last 2 years?
Yeah, and, again, I think if there's one last exit ramp there, it's at the draft this year. Because honestly, if he has a struggling season, I mean, I suppose the other route to his departure would be he actually has a bit of a renaissance year, recoup some of his assets, and the Canucks get off the player at that point. I suppose there's one last chance for an exit ramp, but in the immediate future, it's at the draft and in and around free agency where you could see them act again. I think more likely they do the former and bring the player back Hope that they see something in the last 20 games. Hope they see something next year that gives them some cause. And I mean, it's just an exorbitant contract.
If he performs poorly for these final 20 games, which will at that point make it more than 2 years, like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
At that point, you ain't got time to bleed. At that point, I think you absolutely have to make a deal just to get rid of that contract.
Retaining
and that player.
retaining
nothing.
Retaining nothing.
You can't retain for 6 years.
I don't know that that'll be possible, Matt. I really don't.
You take bad money back, Blake. You certainly do not retain on 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can find
show me the example of a team that has retained salary on 6 years. I know some of these buyouts can last you 6 years, but retaining salary for 6 years? Are you kidding me?
It's a narrow path, but if you can find a team that's got a gross contract that has 2 years left on it,
that's it. That's it.
Sure.
That's what you have to do.
But it's a narrow path. Like those are not a lot of examples.
But that is far preferred than retaining on his contract for 6 years.
Yeah.
Let's get to our menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Greta, fantastic spot to catch all the games, to pregame, to postgame. You're mere steps from the stadium or the arena. If you have designs on organizing a group outing, do so at Greta. They got an awesome menu of unpretentious street food. I love the tacos. The arcade that encircles the bar has a game for absolutely everyone. You got a private riser in the back that would suit you well, surrounded by screens. For more info to book your event, go to gretabar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Well, we've talked to Jeff. We've talked to Patrick. Coming up, we'll talk some Whitecaps as they're into Portland tomorrow. Also name-checked at the White House yesterday. The Whitecaps were re-signing in Seattle prior to NFL free agency. Geno Smith on the move again. And then local sports. You have the Rugby Sevens this weekend at BC Place. You've got the LEC Provincial Boys Basketball Championship. And you have a big one for the Vancouver Warriors tonight against the Toronto Rock. A chance to move into a tie for first place in the NLL.
I've got an example of your narrow path. To New Jersey for Dougie Hamilton.
There you go. Bring it on.
$9 million for the next 2 years.
Bring it on.
Then you peel off the Band-Aid.
You peel Dougie Hamilton as soon as you can, too. And you may even retain on Dougie Hamilton because it's only 2 years. That is the sort of managing we're talking about here, folks. The managing that thus far Jim Rutherford and Patrik Allvin have seemed incapable of executing. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I was on the Islanders last night, so I lost. Feel free to go. Kings beat them.
I'm going to take the the Canucks on the road against the Hawks. I feel like the shadows are over. They're not following the Vancouver Canucks. You expect them to be just god-awful on most nights. I think they feel a little bit lighter. I think they pull off a road victory against Chicago plus 125.
I think Evander Kane is going to be particularly pissed off he didn't get a trade and take a bad penalty or two. I think you're going to have a couple of unprofessionals all mopey because Conor Garland was traded. And we talked about how Foote and his staff screwed up the goaltending with that pull of Kevin Lankinen at 4-2 on Wednesday. Add it all up, I think the Hawks are going to have a lot of opportunities, especially on the power play today. You have to think that the pride of North Vancouver is going to want to show well, knowing how many people back in BC are watching. Give me 3 points from Connor Bedard tonight, paying plus 575. This segment, a presentation of Bet365. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. Use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Some Whitecaps and Seahawks talk coming up next. Secure some price from the historic Wall Center in the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. Ticket secured, hotel solved. Make the Wall Center your downtown headquarters for every big game, concert, and rivalry night. See what's happening at wallcenter.com. Whitecaps into Portland tomorrow to face the Timbers, carrying a undefeated 2-0 mark in MLS play. 3 wins, 1 draw across all competitions. As we've mentioned, this is their lone MLS road game till May with this front-loaded home schedule, thanks to BC Places being unavailable for the World Cup in June. They have had some thorough victories down at Providence Park of late. Who could forget the playoff game a couple of years ago, supposed to be at BC Place, wasn't able to happen because of Supercross, and no matter, they went down to Portland and absolutely destroyed them in the wildcard game. They got a big lopsided victory in Portland early last year as well, Blake, which sort of put us on notice that, hey, maybe this is a juggernaut, and they turned into a wagon in the early going last season.
Remember Stuart Armstrong?
Yeah.
Part of that playoff win.
I also remember Barry Robson.
Portland's 1-1 of the season, but everybody in the West is 1-1. So it's impossible to know how good Portland is just yet. I think they're going to be mildly better than they were last year, though. So, Whitecaps will have to play well.
Terrific venue. I love that crowd.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I mean, old antiquated baseball stadium redone. That huge end zone area with all those fans that go on for days.
It feels like Fenway. It feels like Fenway.
Like it does. It's
really cool.
A marvelous feel. I mean, it goes to prove a brand new soccer-specific stadium doesn't have to be, right? Like they have done extraordinary work with what they have downtown there in Portland. Winger Kenji Cabrera missed last week with an injury. Now, he was only light training to the best of our knowledge this week, so see if he may miss another one there.
Might be on the bench, but he's definitely – I couldn't imagine him in the 11, no.
Yeah. And speaking of wingers, Bruno Caicedo has arrived in town this week. He's a U22 initiative player for the Caps. He comes to us from Ecuador. Jesper Sorensen saying that he hasn't played in a while, and this is going to take some time, likely to debut after the international break at the end of this month. And as we have talked about, even with the Jaden Nelson trade, and the Ali Ahmed transfer, that with the exploits of A.Z. Jackson already early in this season, and Caicedo coming into the mix, Cabrera, who didn't play a whole lot last year,
and Sheikh Sabali,
and Suresh Jeevan Badwa, who lined up at wing last week. It looks like a position of depth and of quality for the Whitecaps. Of course, attacking midfield, got Thomas Muller and love Sebastian Berhalter, Kubas in the defense. It is a very good collection of players.
We're down to 6 weeks away from Veselinovic and Gauld, right? So,
MLS released the amount of GAM, general allocation money, available to each club today. The Whitecaps have a puny total of $21,000. What does that mean? Explain GAM to them, what it can be used for.
It's generally used as a coupon to bring designated players down into the ranks of the common man. So you can open up a DP spot. Whitecaps have done that with Andres Kubas already. So, I mean, they've got their roster set, though. So that's a sign of a roster that they feel is likely complete for the time being. Summer transfer window may change things because they'll have a DP slot free there anyhow. But for now, I think they're content with what they've got until July.
And then there was this. I'm not sure we would ever see the day where the name Vancouver Whitecaps was spoken at the White House.
You know who.
Let alone by him.
Yes.
But Inter Miami visited the White House yesterday after their MLS Cup victory in December over the Whitecaps. And President Donald J. Trump was talking about the match. Here he is.
Led by a hat trick from young star Tadeo Ayan Day. Where is Tadeo? What a group of people. We could have a lot of fun with these guys. You can imagine when they win how they celebrate. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. In that MLS Cup final against the Vancouver Whitecaps, the entire team played together as one flawless unit. Just flawless, they say. After Vancouver tied the game 1-1, Leo picked the pocket of a Whitecap defender and sent a pass to the great Rodrigo DePaul. Where the hell is Rodrigo?
Where the hell is he?
Hell's Rodrigo? Step right up, Rodrigo. I will give someone at the White House credit. Those are pretty good briefing notes. That is what happens to a degree. I wouldn't say a flawless effort from Inter Miami. Vancouver was the better team, but yeah, 1-1. Leo picked the pocket, and that was that. Curtains for the Caps.
Whose pocket? Andres Kubas?
It was a rough go for Kubas in the postseason. Do you know whether the Whitecaps got invited to Parliament Hill, 24 Sussex, with Joe Clark as PM in '79?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I can't imagine the Whitecaps' name has been spoken at the seats of government very often. There it was yesterday. Seahawks have re-signed starting linebacker Drake Thomas. It's a 2-year deal, base salary of $8 million, chance to make $9 million more. He was really good last year. This was a win for the Seahawks development program. He stepped into a starting role at 96 tackles, 3.5 sacks. He's going to line up beside Ernest Jones and stabilize that position. The Raiders have made it official now. They are releasing former Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith. They were trying to trade him, but they're going to open up $8 million in cap space by releasing him now. I would suspect that Geno finds work as a backup somewhere. And then there's this oddity. This is the second straight year where Clint Kubiak has joined a team only to see them get rid of Geno Smith shortly thereafter. Of course, came to Seattle last year as the offensive coordinator. They traded Geno out to the Raiders for a third-round pick, took the quarterback Jalen Milroe from Alabama, and now he's the head coach of the Raiders, and they're moving on from Geno Smith. Remember, Blake, he's headed to Iran to overthrow the regime.
I get.
Blake got a little bit of shade from our buddy Farhan this week, who wanted it noted that somehow the overthrow line was over his head.
I regard Geno as just generally being not very good. I didn't know that was necessarily his calling card, the overthrow.
Anyways, you've redeemed yourself in Farhan's eyes, I'm sure. Vancouver Rugby.
Where's Murray going though? It's
a good question.
Like the Raiders, like that some
razzle
dazzle.
There's talk that the Jets have interest in Tua. Malik Willis, who has done very good work as the Green Bay backup as a free agent, and that's a big domino to drop. And
but the Raiders should have a quarterback that can
a trade guy.
The Raiders should have a quarterback that entertains, and Tua can as well. It's just he's never healthy, but Tua or Murray on the strip, not a bad idea.
Yes, yeah. Willis is a free agent. There could be some activity in the backup quarterback market with trades there, so. Be on the lookout for that. You're going to see a quarterback carousel. And a couple of quarterbacks have first-round grades or expected to go in the first round. Of course, the Heisman Trophy winner, the national champion, Fernando Mendoza, who will go first overall to the Raiders and replace Geno Smith, and then Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. And these sometimes quarterbacks have some helium, so could he get into the top 10 or somewhere in the 10 to 15 range? The Rams at pick 13, now that they have traded for the big corner, or is Simpson going to be a later first rounder? We'll see. Vancouver Rugby Sevens start tomorrow at BC Place. Love this event because it's a annual sort of kickoff to spring, right? Here come the cherry blossoms. Here comes the longer days, the nicer weather, and the Rugby Sevens usually draws some big and hydrated crowds to downtown and the stadium.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Rugby Sevens, it is quite a party if you've never gone. Lots of fancy dress, as they call it. Lots of singing, lots of chanting.
If you're driving through downtown and you see a group of minions,
that's right.
Don't be
That
alarmed.
is the Rugby Sevens. Give them a wide berth.
Yeah, lots of good costumes.
I'm not sure there's a single sport out there, I mean, maybe darts or bowling, that have the sort of cultural connection to beer drinking that rugby has. Blake?
Yeah,
they go to beat each other up on the pitch over 80 minutes, not sevens, but 15s, and then they all go hit the pub together.
I hope that this event continues to have luster for the fans, because the Canadian program, particularly on the men's side, has fallen into some disrepute. So
Sevens?
Yes.
Yeah. Canadian women get things going tomorrow, playing the U.S. at 1 p.m. They also play Australia and Fiji. The men start at 2:20 tomorrow. They play Japan and Chile, and they will play Japan and Chile again.
Yeah, they're just in an exhibition series. They're not part of the actual tournament here. Yes. That's the problem.
The women have a to-be-determined game on Sunday based on performance. Our buddy Gareth Reese a couple months ago at the BC Sports Hall of Fame Selection Committee meeting. Provincial Boys Basketball Championships at the LEC. Here's the Final Four in the top division of 4A. You got Dover Bay facing Kelowna in one semifinal, and then Vancouver College versus Oak Bay in the other semi. Big tournament for the Bays there. The 1A, 2A, 3A semis also on tap. Basketball Phil is all over me because Kits fell. I have both Kits and Tupper loyalties. Tupper didn't make the field this year.
Hansworth didn't make the field
Hansworth didn't make the field.
No, it's too bad.
Well, unfortunately. And the Vancouver Warriors have a big one tonight at Rogers Arena versus the Toronto Rock. 9-3. A win would get the Warriors into a first-place tie with at least Idle Saskatchewan, or a three-way tie with Saskatchewan and Colorado, pending the Mammoths game against Ottawa. We mentioned on Monday the Warriors are on a heater here. They've played very well of late. They swept a difficult weekend set last week against Las Vegas and San Diego. They played Friday, Sunday, and they won both of those games. You're getting close to the stretch drive here in the NLL, and the Warriors seem to be finding their form. Of course, they're looking to repeat. They got to the final last year before falling to the eventual champion Buffalo, but for the first time in the history of that franchise, we talked about it last year, they had momentum. They looked like one of the league's better teams. They were entertaining. They were drawing a crowd. People were enjoying not just the atmosphere at Rogers Arena, it is a fun night, but also the play on the pitch. And they were even scoring goals this year, because last year they were winning so much on the back of Del Bianco, the great goaltender, low-scoring games. This year they're scoring goals. So good on the Warriors.
That's good. That's really good. One other item from soccer I wanted to get to. There was some talk that Alphonso Davies was going to play for Bayern this week already.
Oh, wow.
Did participate in full training, but is not going to play today.
Oh, okay.
He's not on the bench, but he's that close.
This is Bundesliga?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he was full training yesterday. So that's a great sign for the March window. I don't know if I'm Jesse Marsh, if I want to actually start him in the March window. Like, I don't know. We'll see how he's used by Bayern in the next week here. But be around the team, train, maybe off the bench for Canada. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just looking Champions League later in the month. Champions League, they have they're at Old Trafford.
What day?
March 25th.
That's after the window, isn't it? That's the first.
No, I believe that's before the window. Isn't the window right at the end of the month?
I thought it was the 20th.
Anyways, Bayern at Old Trafford in Champions League quarterfinals later in the month. And she also mentioned, we mentioned it yesterday as well, the Canadian women's national team tomorrow versus Argentina in the finale of the She Believes Cup for Canada. Have that good win against Colombia, scored 4 goals, narrow loss to the U.S. Argentina is the weakest opponent of the field. So if they beat them soundly, the Canadian women's team back on the upswing.
And you're right. The 25th is the last day before the window. Yeah.
Results of yesterday's poll question. We asked you how many more trades do the Canucks need to make to have a successful deadline. The options here were 1, 2, 3, or trade them all. The winner is
3.
Correct. Percentage
40.
Right on the money.
Boom.
Price. Trade them all got 35% of the vote. 2 got 21% of the vote. Only 5% voted for 1. Chetty, if they don't trade all the UFAs, then it's a fail, especially in a rebuild. Scott, 3+, and the Woo one doesn't count. And Tyler, bare minimum 2, but deep down I know we're probably only getting 1 more at the buzzer. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program and beyond. And boy, this was the story item that seemingly has a never-ending bucket of errors or omissions. And of course, all our eagle eyes were on this, or keen ears, talking Yerke earlier in the week. Now Colin and Planning checking in. We talked about maybe getting a street named for the late Jim Robson going forward. There's going to be a community push from the fans of Jim Robson to get a street named after the legendary play-by-play man of the Vancouver Canucks, and before that, of course, of Vancouver baseball at the Nat, or then Capilano Stadium. Robson Street downtown is named after former BC Premier John Robson.
Covered that, yeah.
Colin in Planning says, you know, guys, your idea about just putting Jim onto Robson Street, he goes, Mount Robson is the highest peak in the Canadian Rockies, and it is also named for former BC Premier John Robson. So if you had to take his name off of Robson Street by adding the Jim, he would still have something massive.
Yeah.
In Canadian geography named for him. That's awesome work, Colin. That should be part of the file.
Well, here's the other thing.
Part of the application to make it Jim Robson.
Robson
Street.
Square will remain existing. We can keep that for John.
Absolutely. And again, it's been 130 years since this guy.
It's been a good run.
We think his heirs, several generations later, would be okay with this.
Like if you told me, you know, we're renaming West 4th Price Avenue, but it's only going to be for 130 years, I'd be like, no, I'm good with that. That's good.
And by what criteria or claim would a street in Kitsilano bear your name?
No,
that's blasphemous.
I would ask for
West
that
4th
just to piss you off.
iconic.
I would ask for that just to
What
piss you
are
off.
you talking about? West 4th is the hub of my community, my neighborhood.
How much would it piss you off
It is
driving
the site
down
of Kitsilano,
Price Avenue?
BC's biggest festival every summer, West 4th.
I like this idea more and more as we brainstorm it.
From Burrard to McDonald, pedestrian, vendors, artists, artisans, food.
Can you picture like an 80-year-old Matt Sakaris as people be, oh, Price Avenue is so decorated so nicely for Christmas, and you'd be like, ah.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. I'm just going to give you the last word on a Friday. Please do subscribe to our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live, many of those platforms. Noon Pacific time weekdays. And of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about and keep it local.